TikTok, time to rock. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone who's watching from all over the world. It's your friendly neighborhood philosopher here, D. Wood, with me now. I've got Christopher. How you doing, man?
I'm good.
Now,
How'd it go?
your channel's called Defending a Lion.
Yes,
Why's your channel called Defending a Lion?
because there was too many Christian apologist YouTube channels, so there's not enough names to go around. And that one is interesting. I'm writing a book called In Defense of a Lion, so it's a play on words for like an apology in defense of something. But the lion doesn't need defending because he's God. So just kind of nerdy title.
Now, I've pointed out in the past, that you can run the Islamic dilemma in a bunch of different ways. Um, I generally run it by saying that the Quran affirms the inspiration, preservation, and authority of, and I can say it in different ways. Sometimes I'll say the Jewish and Christian scriptures, or I might say the Torah and the gospel. But I've pointed out that you could run it just by you could just say the Quran confirms the Bible and see what you can come up with there. You can focus on either the Torah or the gospel. A lot of Christians would want to focus on the gospel because that's usually how it's going to come up in a discussion. You'll be talking about the gospel with your Muslim friend, and he'll eventually say, no, that's been corrupted. And what he means is something Jesus said is corrupted, and therefore you can't trust it, and therefore you have to defend the document in which Jesus said this, which would usually be the gospel. But you also have kind of more statements in the Quran about the Torah than the gospel because Muhammad was just interacting. He was around significantly more Jews than he was Christians at the relevant times. So you can run it in any one of those ways. But I've also pointed it out in various situations, especially when Muslims are like, no, it's not talking about that gospel. It's talking about the Arabic infancy gospel. They'll just say something, one of these texts that has some story that the Quran has in it as well. They'll say that's what it's affirming. And I'll say, okay, pick any one of those. Pick any one of those alternative second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth century gospels that are forgeries. Pick any one of those, and I'll run the Islamic dilemma from that. But you're pointing out there's a completely different way to present the Islamic dilemma, and that's with the Talmud.
Right. Yeah. So the Islamic dilemma is actually complemented by the Talmudic dilemma because they're not exactly the same thing. Where it's still the Quran is directly affirming the scriptures given to the Jews, and it quotes the Talmud when it does that at least 5 times, if not a couple dozen times. So it's quoting the Talmud, affirming what's the Torah given to Moses. So I think what it's actually affirming is the oral Torah given to Moses, and Muhammad didn't know the difference between the oral Torah and the written Torah. And all of so whenever I first started reading the Talmud, I put it at like anywhere from like 30 to 50% of the Quran was based on Talmud. I have that figure up to like 80% now. So I think the overwhelming majority of the content is from the Talmud, but the Talmud was written during a period of the Fatra, where there was no prophet given. So how is it that the Quran is using Talmudic material when the Talmud was written by people who were led astray and who didn't have prophets, according to Islam? Yet it calls it scripture. So you run into many different problems in that, which is what I've termed the Talmudic dilemma.
And so you've assembled quite a bit of data to defend the idea that the Quran is actually drawing tons of content from the Talmud. Let me pull up this response from Dean Responds here. Dean Responds tries to get away from this by affirming that the Talmud is the oral Torah. He's the first Talmudic Muslim. What do you think about that?
I think that is what you have to affirm as a Muslim. The ironic part is it can't be true because of the Fatra. So because we have Sahih Bukhari that says that there is no prophet between Isa and Muhammad, and you also have surahs that say that prophecy like Wahi is only delivered by angels and by prophets, unless you're affirming that the Jews, the rabbis themselves, are prophets, you run into problems with Islam. You still run into corruption. You still run into a dilemma because also the Talmud contradicts the Quran in a bunch of ways. It outlaws child marriage. That's halal. So it still contradicts. So you still run into the Islamic dilemma even with the Talmud because there's still contradictory material. Even though it's pulling most of its theology from the Talmud, it's still contradicting the core claims of, well, not the core claims, all the new claims of Islam that Muhammad actually invented. They typically contradict the Talmud. So you still run into that dilemma.
Seems like we may need to eventually do something kind of comprehensive. Do something comprehensive like here's the Islamic dilemma run from the gospel, here's the Islamic dilemma run from the Torah, here's the Islamic dilemma here, here's this Talmudic dilemma, and put it all together. And so the more problems, the merrier. And that's not just, that's not just to be mean, but it's like, if you've been told all your life that the Quran is perfect and Islam is the perfect religion and stuff, just someone coming up to you with one argument usually isn't enough to shake your confidence in Islam, especially when Islam tells you that people are going to come up with arguments and they're going to be evil deceivers trying to lead you astray. So you're not just going to believe the first person that comes along. Whereas if we just keep piling on, not in the Zut sense, but if we just keep piling on more and more arguments with more and more evidence, I think that'll help in the long term.
Yeah, we're trying to work on a Quran translation where I emailed Robert Spencer and I was trying to get his permission to reprint the critical Quran, which is what I use for all my Quranic studies. So I have my own version of it that's highlighted to no end, going through everything with the different colors. Mm-hmm. So I really love his translation. It's actually readable. And I'm trying to use his reprint or sale or one of the like out of copyright versions if we need to, and bring in every single resource, every single reference to the Talmud, to the Injil, to the actual Torah, and have that as a footnote inside of the Quran so you can actually read and see, okay, what material is from the Jews, what is from the Gnostics, what's from the Christians, what's from the Zoroastrians, what's from the Greeks. And you can also see the contradictions within that. So we'll have every single contradiction and every single source material for those belief systems, because it's not just the Talmud. He was the ear copied from everyone. So we're working on that right now in the Islamic Dilemma project, which is mostly happening inside the Discord. But
yeah, I'd like to take one of the Palmer translations. Palmer translation, that's no longer copyrighted. It's pretty good. Got some problems. We should do something like a revised Palmer edition where we get a couple of the Arabic speakers, Jai, DOC, a couple of others, and have them go through and smooth things over, correct any mistakes, and just we would have the revised Palmer edition of the Quran. And then that could be ours. Yeah. It could be ours, and then we can do whatever we want with it and use it for all our stuff.
Right.
Here we have Eric says, so we need a comprehensive Islamic dilemma or ACID. If we pile on a bunch of Islamic dilemmas, we should just call it the Zut approach, something like that.
I was thinking of recording a video that was just like Zut innuendos and have you respond to it, and the title of it be like the impossible challenge for David Wood, making no Zut jokes. And just be like 5 minutes of me making like straight-faced available commentary.
Someone did it, and then their comment got taken down for some reason. But it started off. It started off. They were condemning me, right? They were condemning me. They're starting off by condemning me and saying, "David, I can't believe you keep coming with these stupid little Zut jokes. You just keep piling them on and on." But it's like everything, like the entire. He just kept going on, and everything was like the start of a Zut joke. At first, I was like, "Quit telling me what to do," and I was like, "Oh, I see what he's doing here." And I said it reminded me of this scene in The Office where Michael found out he could no longer say "that's what she said," and then so he announces that he can no longer say "that's what she said," and Jim goes, "Wow, that is really hard." And like his boss is there and the lawyer and stuff like that. He goes, "That is really hard. Do you think you can last all day?" "Well, you always left me satisfied." And then he couldn't help it. And he said, "That's what she said." So anyway, that's going to be what the situation's like. Let's take these first three super chats here, and then we will jump into your presentation, unless there's anything you'd like to discuss before that. We have
No.
showering you with jizya. 6 days left until Eshatan. You don't know that. Sheikh Smollett was supposed to be here in Montreal. By God, he even got canceled. Some movements are emerging here, but the discourse is around secularism, weak but better than nothing. What do you mean Sheikh Smollett? I would assume you mean Sheikh Uthman, because he got that name for faking a hate crime against himself. But there's been so many of these guys faking things against themselves for attention, because now it's just a battle for attention. Whichever Dawa guy gets the most online attention is the most popular. And so they'll have to kind of make things up and fake hate crimes against themselves and so on. Lily J had to do it. But yeah.
It was Sheikh Uthman. He got barred from entering into Montreal. So his flight got denied, where he wasn't allowed onto the plane.
Huh. And they said, and they announced to me, they said, it's because your dawa is so powerful that if we let you into Canada, all of Canada will convert. Brothers and sisters, they will not stop the dawa. They will not stop the dawa. And then they beat me. They beat me in Canada. And the kuffar. Oh, but then they all converted. They all converted to Islam. It was amazing. Sheikh Mike Wingeline says, the original rabbis were Muslim. Yes, they were. The original rabbis in Palestine. They are still praising the fake Zemzem well. Wasn't there a desalination plant that provides the water? They still don't know about that. Yeah, they need, well, yeah, you need way more. You need way more water. So I guess it mixes with the few drops of real Zamzam water left there. But my goodness, this is some pagan weird stuff. All right, man. So you've got the Talmudic dilemma. So you can jump into your presentations. We'll probably jump in and out of it periodically whenever I see reasons for rejecting, or if we want to take some comments or something like that. But break it down for us, man. Break it down for us. And I see you have, because we were talking beforehand, you have like 6 hours of content on this stuff where the Quran is drawing material from the Talmud. And so...
Right. Yeah, I have 153 slides, and that was after me cutting 20 of them because I got tired of making the slides. So there's actually more material available than what I have in this slide deck for the connections between Islam, and I've only been studying this for about 2 months. So the material I'm presenting on today...
Oh, wow, I thought this was like your life, man. Thought this was your life or something.
This is only 2 months worth of work. And I made this presentation this week since you emailed me last weekend. So this whole presentation I made in the last 5 days. And it's pretty extensive, so.
And just
so
we
can go through it till you're satisfied.
Yeah, just so everyone knows, this is the approach that I like. We've got sort of the general Islamic dilemma that we'll, keep using until Muslims get the point. But it's also really awesome if people zero in on some particular versions of it and then become kind of experts on that, and then you're kind of the go-to guy for that version. And so that's what we want. And so everyone who's watching, if you've been studying the Islamic dilemma, everyone needs to learn the Islamic dilemma. Everyone needs to learn the basic version of the Islamic dilemma. That is the ultimate dawah stopper. If a small fraction, if like 5% of Christians learned the Islamic dilemma, so that there's always someone in some church, in any given church, there's always someone in there who knows the Islamic dilemma, you've just destroyed Dawah. Dawah will never succeed again. That's just if people get the gist down and learn a couple of references that they can use when necessary. But if we are really going on the offensive with this, we need all the different versions in all their glory, and need to keep running with these. Be good stuff. Let's see. Hang on. I just want to read this because it's funny. Where does "they beat me in the desert" come from? Yeah, that was so they tried a flotilla to go to Gaza, and then the flotilla got stopped. Then you had all these geniuses who were like, ha, well, Gaza also shares a border with Egypt. So So you can't go through Israel to get to Gaza. You're not going to be allowed. So they had the brilliant idea, let's just sail there, not realizing Israel has ships, apparently. And so that didn't work. And then they realized, aha, Egypt is a country too. And Egypt also shares a border with Gaza. So we'll just go to Egypt and then go through the border that way. And then realize Egyptians are not letting you go through Egypt. So they started whining and throwing tantrums. And one of the guys was going, they beat me in the desert. But he had this like ridiculous accent because he's from one of those little weird areas of the UK. But I just heard, they beat me in the desert. He was trying to get sympathy. And it was just the hilarious part to me was Westerners think that other people think like them. And so they think that Egyptian soldiers think exactly like someone in the UK, and they don't. They don't. You're not going to whine them into disobeying orders not to let you through the gate to Gaza, right? It's like, oh, if I just whine and I'll get their sympathy and then they're going to let me, and instead they just beat me in the desert. Well, I could have told you they were going to do that. If you mess around with Egyptian soldiers and you're not listening to them, like 100%, they're going to beat you in the desert, dude. You're lucky you walked out of there. Anyway, wild stuff. All right. So, okay, hang on. Hang on. A couple more super chats came up. From the point of view of Christian orthodoxy, the Talmud does contain pieces of holy tradition, which is oral Torah, but Mo is ignorant of the difference. What do you think of that?
So it depends on what you mean by holy tradition. There are things like annihilationism that you can derive from the Talmud. So there are Christian, like early rabbinic writing from, let's say, 100 to 300 AD in Jerusalem were very Christian. It lines up with Christian theology quite well. Ash Mays did a video on this if you want to check out how the rabbis changed Judaism, is I believe the name of it. And he goes through a lot of the changes that they made, but early rabbinic writing was mostly aligned with Christianity as far as like a divine Messiah, a personal God, or like a binity. Like you got Philo's writings, but you also have the Targums that are like Targum Jonathan that has a divine word of God, the memra of Elohim or Adonai. And you have some of that stuff that you can get into Christianity, and the Talmud quotes directly the scriptures a lot. So if you're just taking it from that point of view, yes. If you're taking it from the halakha view, where the new laws that the rabbis are instructing and like creating, I would say no. Mo couldn't tell the difference between those two. What was the man-made halakha and what was the original inspiration and what was like influenced by the Targums. But there was a shift in the 400s, 500s, 600s, more and more away from the church, especially whenever the church actually became prominent in the 300s. You see this rabbinic shift. They have a theological shift that ties them away from Christian ideas and gets back more into more modern rabbinic Judaism. But the modern rabbinic Judaism we have now is mostly based on the medieval Jews and the medieval rabbis that really ramped up the anti-Christian rhetoric and doubled down on the halakhic inclusions.
I did want to get down to this one that's about you. 1 second. I really enjoy watching you guys stream. Not in the Zut sense, though. That's good. And how well would each of the Dawa guys do in prison? Muhammad Hijab would get the crap beat out of him because he would try to establish dominance and someone would check him real quick running his mouth. Ali Dawa, a little pipsqueak, he wouldn't do well. Sheikh Uthman, I think, would do well. For some reason, he's able to, got like a gang vibe. He seems like he understands how to interact with guys like inmates and stuff better.
Isn't he an ex-gang member?
Yeah, and that's probably why he gives that vibe off of this guy would actually knows how to interact with criminals and stuff like that. And like Hijab also knows how to interact with criminals, but not like in a prison sense, just because they're all doing messed up scams and stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, a lot of guys would be getting zooted in there. Let's just say that. And all right, here we go. This is what I wanted to get to. My Walk says, sub to Chris, defending a lion. Yeah, just before we wanted to jump into this, jumped over to your channel. So yeah, guys, the link to Chris's channel is in the description box. Now, if you're just listening to him at the very beginning and looking at his blonde hair, I can't tell if he's your hair looks blonde, but your beard looks ginger. So
I'm an albino ginger.
Okay, so
one of those rare breeds.
Yeah, because I mean,
if I don't have enough pigment for this to be red, so it's mostly white and then a little bit of blonde. But my beard, for some reason, got enough pigment and it's red.
Huh? Yeah.
And then I guess various other patches of my body are white or red.
We don't need to hear about any of that. But yeah, because I was thinking if you were actually full ginger, then I would expect you to convert to Islam already, because that's what all gingers do apparently. So anyway, I'm looking at your channel. So guys, if you're already mesmerized by Chris, then you can subscribe now. If not, then you can watch this live stream and then decide if you want to go and subscribe. I'm looking. So you started 11 months ago. That's your first video. From hating God to becoming Christian, how Jesus saved my life. That's your first video. Then top 5 times Jesus claimed to be God. So this is general apologetics back then. What the Bible really says about the Trinity. Was Jesus actually born? What it means to live like Christ. Jesus being Lord. Who is the angel of the Lord? Why faith alone saves. Do we need to follow the Old Testament law? Is Muhammad in the Bible? Now you get to Islam. That's 7 months ago. How a single word points to Jesus on the cross. What is the real name of God? Top 10 facts every Christian should know. My struggle with lust. Ooh, you're a pervert. Every chapter of Isaiah references every book of the Bible. Well, hey, was Rebecca 3 years old in the Bible? I wonder why someone might think that. Fulfilled prophecy all over Isaiah. The Egyptian origin of the Hebrew alphabet. The secret meaning behind Hebrew letters. God's math. Hidden prophecy of Jesus in Genesis. How a Syrian refugee found God. Proving the Trinity in the Old Testament. Here we go. The Islamic dilemma destroys Islam. That is 1 month ago. So you have a video on the Islamic dilemma from 1 month ago. Then why we may have the burial cloth of Jesus. That's about the Shroud of Turin. And then you've got Surah 27 is the proof. So is that like talking about the ants in that one? Solomon
yeah, the Turtle Shinaim connection. Yeah.
And then are we in the end times? The Islamic Muhammad versus the historical Muhammad. Who did the Jews think Isaiah 53 was about? The Quran is an incomplete book. The Talmudic dilemma, a.k.a. the new way to debunk Islam, and how the binding of Isaac is a foreshadow of Christ. So, guys, I just went through all of his video topics and started 11 months ago. So if those sound like some things you're interested in, you can check out the channel. And that brings us to the Talmudic dilemma. We got the sub to you. We got super sticker from Ida. We got it's your favorite maid saying hi. Darn, I'm late. Our favorite maid. And he's a calico.
Yeah, I was born with white hair. And I've slowly developed red, so
calico.
It's been interesting. Yeah.
All right, man. You want to take us through the Talmudic dilemma?
Yeah. One thing to say about my channel for the videos, I think I made the most thorough debunking of Rebecca being 3 on the internet.
More than mine?
It's an exceptionally long video. Yeah, because I go through the Hebrew, and I go through the Talmud.
Oh, really? Hang on. And
I also have a compilation of Adai's saying that Rebecca's 3 to show that they're lying too.
Hang on. Where'd that video go? Okay, was Rebecca 3? All right, 33 minutes. I wouldn't mind going through that. If you want to jump in for a different live stream, wouldn't mind going through that just because every time we keep thinking, we know, but it's just, you just think, oh, okay, I've destroyed it, therefore they'll stop using it. Wrong! They don't care. They don't care if you've refuted it. They just don't care. Yeah. So, yeah, if you want to go live again, wouldn't mind going through that, and we can check that out, so we can see if you said it's better. Yeah. If it's better than my response, that must mean it's pretty darn dope. Matter of fact, maybe we'll just play my response, and then we'll play your response, and then people can vote, and then you could be humbled. You could be humbled. Here we have Orthozutralips. How well would Orthro, Muslim, Hakikachu, IP, God Logic, Cameron, and Mike Winger do in prison? Also, which is the worst, state or federal? State is worse. I mean, but it varies from state to state. So Cameron would get the crap beat out of him. Mike Winger is such a nerd. Someone might protect him. Like, they might feel so sad for him. Like, oh my goodness, this reminds me of my super nerd brother. This reminds me of like Urkel growing up watching Family Matters. So we're going to protect the guy. God Logic. Everyone would love God Logic. God Logic would be in there, and like half the prison would convert to Christianity. IP would get the crap beat out of him. Hakikachu. And I don't know what, Orthodox Muslim teaches. If he's another guy who defends child marriage, Hakikachu's going to get the crap beat out of him for defending child marriage. They don't play that. They don't play that here. But that's in the U.S. If it was in the U.K., no, it'd be totally fine. But yeah, anyone who goes in there, you have Muslims in prison. They don't know about this stuff. They're completely ignorant of this stuff. They don't know about Muhammad having sex with a 9-year-old girl. If they did, they'd be out of there. So all these guys go in there, yeah, we think it's great, and we're going to get child marriage so we can bang kids. They're going to end up in solitary. All right. Sorry, people are being funny and popping up. Hey, let Chris talk about the rest of his body. It's the most action I got in many years. That's from Ida. Oh, hey, David. All right, ready to jump into this? Not in a zit sense.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, I'm gonna put your
I don't
presentation
think my
up on
wife
the
would
screen.
appreciate that, though.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out, guys, there is a way for all of you who scream like babies. Well, why can't you be like little pictures of you guys on the screen? As if it matters. Like, if there's just slides there, oh, we hear voices and we think there are ghosts. We need to actually see little people talking to us and stuff. I actually kind of figured it out right before we started, but then I couldn't figure out what I did, and so I had to just take it off the screen. I couldn't get it right. But in the future, it looks like, and then Christopher sent me a video apparently on how to make it do that. So in the future, should be able to do that. But as of right now, just going to have, do you go by Chris or Christopher?
Doesn't matter. My wife calls me Christopher.
Right. Well,
I usually go by Chris.
In order to distinguish myself from your wife, I will call you Chris. All right. So here we have Chris's slides. All right, here you go.
Okay. Talmudic dilemma. So obviously I picked papyrus because I wanted to honor Nabil, because Nabil is actually the one that got me into studying Islam. It's also how I ended up learning about you, David. So from his interview with Lee Strobel, and whenever he did the Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus, and you had the little testimony, it was like 2 years ago. And then you also put out your testimony on this channel, the new channel. And I watched that for the first time. I was like, oh, this is awesome, because I also had like sociopathic tendencies growing up, and I came to Christ through reason. So I felt like a connection to you whenever you went through that testimony. So like, this is cool. So I watched a couple of your live streams, and I was like, Islam doesn't really make any sense. Why do people follow this? And I watched a lot of your live streams, and now here we are. So this presentation is about 2 years worth of studying Islam and about 2 months of studying the Talmud. So going through, oh, here's the shameless plugs. This presentation itself, if you want the full slide deck, is in the middle here. And then the full document, I wrote a booklet on the Talmudic dilemma. It's about 40 pages, and it goes through the full argument in pretty good detail.
Now, do you want me to? So you have the nerd technical way of going to sites there on the screen that anyone can use. I have your video on the Talmudic dilemma in the description box and your YouTube channel. You want me to add the link to that document?
No, that document is in the description of that video. So is the slide deck. So the slide deck and the booklet are both in the description of the Talmudic dilemma video.
All right.
Yeah. So speaking of that video, that's a 40-minute video, and I go through the general argument of the Talmudic dilemma, but I don't show many of the connections between the Quran and the Sunnah and the actual Talmud. This presentation, I'll be going through more of the connections. So I'll kind of skim what I talk about in that video, but I'll bring up some of the major points. So what is the Talmud? Because Muslims don't seem to actually know what it is. I laughed so hard whenever you were in your debate with Daniel, where he debated Christian Zionism, and you debated whether or not we honor Jesus more. And he said that the Talmud was the holiest scripture to the Jews. Almost no sect of Judaism actually thinks it's scripture. And the Talmud is the holiest scripture to the Jews. Almost no sect of Judaism actually thinks it's scripture. And the Talmud is the holiest scripture to the Jews. Almost no sect of Judaism actually thinks it's scripture. And the Talmud is the holiest scripture to the Jews. other than like the mystics. But the mystics are a very small sect of Judaism. They have a lot of authority when it comes to like how honored they are among the Jews, with like the Hasidic movement, but they are still a relatively small minority. And even then, it's usually the interpretations are inspired, not the actual book itself. So it's not like divine dictation.
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing like that. The Talmud is mostly just debate, and it's broken into two different sections. So there's the Mishnah, which is the oral Torah, and that was written in Jerusalem around 200. So from like 120 to 200 AD was the main writing of the Mishnah. And that was written and compiled by Rav Judah, or Judah the Prince, and he kind of got a bunch of rabbis together after the destruction of the temple and got together, made up a backstory for them with the Great Assembly, because according to the Jews, the content of the Mishnah goes back to the time of Moses, but it was in secret so that you could tell a real Jew from a fake Jew based on if they had the secret information. So it's like this kind of proto-Kabbalistic view and understanding of Judaism, where they had like these secret codes, like this secret handshake you would do in order to identify real Jews versus fake Jews, even though this has no history whatsoever. And again, Ashmaze did a video on this, and I'll eventually do a live stream on this topic. But the evidence for the Great Assembly, the evidence for the Isnad chain of the oral Torah is extremely weak. And we have good evidence that the Torah was written down, including inside the Torah itself with the scribes of the Torah from Sinai. So the idea of the Mishnah is created outside of rabbinic practices in the post Second Temple period, and it is written by I believe they're called Tanin, which are the scholars of Israel, and they are the authoritative scholars. So you have dudes like Hillel, like Yohanan, you have Judah the Prince, you have all of these big, Rabbi Akiva, he's one of the big ones. And he's very important when it comes to like the divine Messiah arguments. But you have all these really big named rabbis that all the other rabbis in the Talmud that are discussing the Mishnah relates, like, this rabbi said that, I'm in their school. So you have different schools of rabbinic thought based on the like 12 or so major rabbis of the Mishnah. Well, the Mishnah was written and compiled, and then in Babylon, you have the Gemara, which is mostly commentary. It has a big focus on what's called halakha, or the legal side of Judaism. And there's also some agidic, or stories, embellishments. So whenever we're talking about what is actually happening, thanks, Ash. Yeah, so again, some disclaimers for my Hebrew. Ani lo midber virit. I don't speak Hebrew. Ani krev va'kre, or katev va'kre. I can read and write. I'm literate in Hebrew. I've read most of the Torah in Hebrew. I'm not fluent in speaking because I don't have anyone to speak to. So for all the Hebrew side of it, that's kind of my background. Is I've been studying Hebrew, Greek, and Arabic for a couple of years now. Arabic the most recently, and I'm literate in that, but my gloss is very low. So I know a couple hundred words of Hebrew, and I know enough of the grammar and the structure to get through both it and the Aramaic, because it's practically the same language. Anyway, so you have the Gemara that is commentary on the Mishnah. And these commentaries range from anything like, this guy said this, he's an idiot, I'm going to say this, and then some other dude comes later and is like, they're all both idiots, this is the reality of it. And then a third dude or a fourth dude comes in and is like, all of them are wrong. I was revealed in a dream that it's this. Like, it's all over the place. It's just rabbis debating things over and over and over again. So there's this famous story inside of Jewish literature that to understand what the Talmud is, they tell a tale where there's two men that walk into a bar, and the rabbi says to the man, or the man says to the rabbi, hey, what's it like studying the Talmud? And the rabbi's like, let me tell you a story so you understand. Two men are cleaning a chimney, and they come down, and one of them is covered in dirt. What do you think the other man says to them? Or no, who washes? And the first rabbi says the one who is clean washes because he sees the one is dirty and thinks he is clean. And he's like, does it make sense? He's like, I guess it makes sense. Then he says the same thing over again. It's like, okay, two men are cleaning a chimney, come down. One of them's dirty, who washes? Then he's like, well, you just told me it was the clean man. Wait, no, it was the dirty man. The dirty man washes himself because he sees that he's dirty. Then he's like, let me tell you again. There's two men that clean a chimney. They come down. Which of them washes? And he said, Rabbi, you just told me two different things. I guess the one that's dirty. And he's like, no, they both wash because neither of them would be clean. So it is interpretation of a factoid that goes in wildly different ways and wildly different meaning. And it's weird to think it's scripture. Pretty much no one would think this thing is scripture. So you have the Jerusalem Talmud, which is the Midrash from...
Yep, pause for 1 second. Just want to... We've got Jeff here. Where does the New Testament identify him as a Jew? Oh, wait. Jeff, I'm giving one warning, man. I seriously don't have time for this idiotic Candace Owens nonsense. Seriously, like that's it, man. One warning. Stop it. Okay. We're trying to focus on something. You're trying to distract people. Stop trying to distract people with this. Okay. Go over to Candace's Twitter page and run your mouth there. All right.
Oh, all right, man.
All right. Go ahead.
What about Son of David? Anyway.
Oh, yeah, genealogies and stuff. Oh, and then he's saying, he's from the tribe of Judah, but where is he a Jew? All right, shut up, dude. Just shut up, man. You're stupid.
It's amazing. Yeah. So you have the Jerusalem Talmud and the Babylonian Talmud. Both of them commentate on the Mishnah, and both of them are completed well before the time of Muhammad. So I have the Jerusalem was completed roughly around 400, although there is some later commentary coming out of Jerusalem in the early 600s and early 500s. But the big bulk of it is completed by 400. Then the Babylonian Talmud is the one that is actually used by both rabbis more, and it's used by the Quran almost exclusively, which I'll get to in a second. But it is mostly Hebrew and Aramaic. It has the halakha, as I mentioned before, and it has the Yaggitic parallels, folklore. It's kind of all over the place. But this is the major understanding of Jews on how rabbinic Judaism works since the temple system broke down. Because once the law was nullified in the regard of there's no longer a sacrifice, so we can't actually be atoned for through the Levitical sacrifices from Leviticus 2 to 8. Because there's not those sacrifices anymore, we don't have a way to commune with Yahweh. What do? So they invented this legal code to codify all the things that they're like, hey, let's just have a prayer-based and a repentance-based faith. So they take on Christianity in a sense, but they leave out the divine Messiah who died for sin. So they still have salvation through repentance. They just miss out the blood sacrifice of Jesus actually fulfilling the sacrifices of Leviticus. But overall, it is the rabbis' attempt to keep Judaism pure and to keep Judaism throughout the diaspora and throughout time. That's essentially what the Talmud is. It is all of their, because they got this a little bit from the Greeks. They're a little Hellenized, in my opinion, where the Greeks would just sit on porches and porticos and argue all day. And then the Hellenist Jews also kind of started doing that. So, and in my opinion, you get a little bit of that mixing in over time, where they just start doing this all day and just start doing this in the synagogues. But it's not at all divine. It is a human interpretation of the divine. So for Daniel Hilkiah to say that it's the most holy thing, that's beyond crazy. Anyway, any thoughts on that before I move into the syllogism?
Nope, you're good.
Okay, so the syllogism that I've created for this is in 6 parts, and I have a glossary as well. So Islam teaches that Wahi is granted only through prophets, and that no prophets were sent between Isa and Muhammad, which we get from Sahih Bukhari. Islam also holds that the Jews after Isa were misguided people who were corrupted revelation, followed man-made traditions, and thus were not rightly guided, and that they were condemned unto death, which we get all over the Quran. The Talmud and Midrash were written and compiled after the prophetic period by rabbinic scholars, humans, precisely during the era Islam calls the prophetic void, the Fatra. Many Quranic stories and motifs which all of these I'll mention later if we get to them, closely parallel Talmudic and Midrashic accounts that have no biblical origin but do appear in these rabbinic writings, oftentimes word for word. And a lot, I should have included it in the syllogism too, but there's a lot of cognates. So there's a lot of words that are exactly the same between Arabic and Hebrew because they're sister languages. A lot of the theological terminology used by Jews is also directly used by Muslims, even though they're not aware of it. So it's not just that they have parallels, it's that the words themselves are the same. If the Talmudic Midrashic materials were composed by post-biblical rabbis who were not prophets and who Islam says were misguided, then they cannot be a source of wahi, which is deeply important. If they're a source of wahi, you have a lot of contradictions within the Quran, because the Fatra didn't have any wahi, which is also why they have the Ahil al-Fatra doctrine of the people during that time period will be tested in the afterlife by walking through the fire in order to know whether or not they're going to be allowed into the Garden of Eden. If they fail the test, if they don't want to go into the fire, they're going to be drugged into the real fire and suffer for eternity. If they willingly go into the fire is going to be cool and they won't suffer and die. And that will be their test. That'll be the haga of like the proof of their faith, is that they trust God enough to walk into fire. So in the doctrine of the people of the void, the Ahil al-Fatra, you have this idea that there is no prophetic tradition at all, which is what Muhammad says explicitly in Bukhari. Yet those same non-prophetic, corrupted rabbinic sources contain narratives and teachings that appear in the Quran centuries later. We have some of them that are at least 300 years later, which is amazing. So either Muhammad and his contemporaries learned these stories from Jews and Christians via oral or written traditions. The written traditions were less likely because of how expensive books were, and they were compiled only 100 years before he started revealing things. So unless he like robbed someone and got a physical copy of it, it was all through oral tradition that he is giving these parallels, which means that the Quran contains human-derived material and is not purely divine. Or Allah preserved and endorsed post-prophetic Jewish traditions produced by a community Islam says were misguided as wahi, which contradicts the Quran's own theology of revelation and its critique of Jewish tradition because it says that the Jews were not rightly guided. So you also have the end conclusion of this is, if truth and revelation, Huda and Wahi, if they exist only through the prophets, then the presence of the non-prophetic rabbinic material in the Quran demonstrates that its source must be human transmission, not divine revelation. Thus, Islam is false. And the big takeaway from this argument is not that the Quran copies information from previous sources. That's not an issue. The New Testament does that too. It's that it's copying from false, man-made, contradictory information as if it is the word of God, and it calls it the word of God. So that is the big problem. It's not that it's copying. You can say, oh, well, the Oral Torah was the original Torah. It was the Torah given to Moses. So it's fine that it's copying it, but it contradicts the Quran. And we know it's false and man-made, and it is adding on to what is available within the Hebrew, the Aramaic, and the Greek translations of the Old Testament that were before the time of Jesus. Because we have the Septuagint, which is Greek, we have the Targums, which is Aramaic, and we have the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is Greek, Aramaic, and Hebrew. So we have like the Great Isaiah Scroll, Isaiah 1AQ. You have that mixed with the Septuagint, mixed with Targum Jonathan on Isaiah, and Isaiah's doctrines, Isaiah's prophecy of Jesus, of the Messiah, doesn't line up with the Quran, with like the crucifixion in Isaiah 53. So, but it does line up with later rabbinic tradition that he wasn't actually God. So that's the big issue. That's the big problem. I can substantiate a lot of the other points. The point I want to focus more on right now is point number 4. Points 1 and
yeah, that's the big one.
What?
And it's that one's cool because it's relevant. It's relevant in multiple ways. So you're using it for this. which ties into it. But yeah, it's a huge example. It's a huge example of why Muhammad was called the ear, and why we see so many times in the Quran of people just saying to Muhammad, we've heard this all before. These are tales of the ancients and stories of the men of old and so on, and calling Muhammad the ear, and hey, it's a man who teaches him. And yeah, what percentage do you think, you already said it, but what percentage do you think is drawn from the Talmud, contents of the Quran?
I think it's around 80% because it's also all of the random praises of Allah. So like all the subhanallahs and alhamdulillahs and all the the world of the hereafter and like all those random phrases are all Talmudic. So the vast majority of the repeated material is from the Talmud, which really amplifies the percentages. But I think around 80% is, you can trace it back to the Jews that were before him and contemporary to him.
And then you have all these weird Christian sources where Muhammad got stories from, and it's just like, wait, almost everything in this book we see from other sources. And as you pointed out, that wouldn't be a problem if it was in reliable sources from God. You'd say, okay, therefore either the same thing was re-revealed to Muhammad and that's why they match up perfectly, or Muhammad's quoting stuff because he knows that stuff is from God, but he's quoting all of this stuff that's just from all these other sources that we know aren't divinely inspired books. And so, yeah, they got problems here.
Right. And there's a lot of things I have not yet found connections to previous things. So there still might be like a good percentage of the Quran that is original revelation. Like the idea of the ants talking and the idea of the throne being transferred for Surah 27, that seems to be original. The child marriage of 65:4, that seems to be original. So you do have some things, and like all of Surah 33 is original. So all the things with like the biographies of Muhammad and his life, that is all original to Muhammad, obviously.
Yeah,
but as far as
basically all the stuff that's popping up just to justify Muhammad's perversions.
Right, that is all original to him. But even some of the defenses the pagans give in the Quran, you can find in the Talmud. So it's not even all of the biographic material. Some of the biographic material appears to be defenses that the heretics are giving inside of the Talmud. So it's hard to differentiate what is and what isn't influenced by the Talmud. But so far, I've only read around 10% of the Talmud because there's around 2 million words in it. It's a very big book. It's around like 3 Bibles worth of content.
It's kind of hard to read too.
It's very hard to read, especially if you're trying to read it in Hebrew and English at the same time. It takes a lot of time. So I actually took the last week off of work. I'm a AI researcher. I do medical research using AI. And I took a vacation time for the last week just to make this presentation. And I read hundreds of pages of material over the last like 7 days. So all I'm thinking about is just like Rabbi so-and-so says this, Rabbi so-and-so says that. Just, it's painful. But yeah. Okay, so Fatra. The big problem here is in Bukhari 34-42. I am the nearest of all the people to the Son of Mary, and all the prophets are paternal brothers, and there has been no prophet between me and him, which is Jesus. The all prophets are paternal brothers. You might be able to make a case from the Talmud because it has a list of all the prophets that were Jewish, and it's like 48 of them. It also has a list of 7 Gentile prophets. So I don't know if but in that Gentile prophet list is Job. So Job is considered a prophet kind of in the Talmud, which might be why he's included. Lot is not. So him including Lot as a prophet seems to be original. I can't find a source for that. So there is still some like, he is faithfully transferring. It's like the Quran seems to be a Talmudic paraphrase that also was done by a cult leader to a new audience that was unfamiliar with it, or was like vaguely familiar with it. That's my sense out of like, I've been trying to read the Quran as a detective puzzle, trying to understand where everything came from and how it came into being. And I think that is the closest that I've come to so far, is that his theology loosely lines up with the Ebionites, but it's not one to one because uh, they deny the they accept the crucifixion, but they deny the virgin birth. Other than that, they are Torah observant Christians. They're a heretical sect. So their theology actually roughly lines up with Muhammad's theology, but they didn't exist by the time of Muhammad. So maybe some like weird Ebionite cults type thing developed in Arabia. It's hard to say. But we have Bukhari that says that there is a fatwa, there is no prophet between Isa and Muhammad. So the rabbis in the 200s, 300s, 400s, and 500s cannot be prophets. They cannot have driven or given wahi. So that is the big problem. And the Jews were also already led astray.
Hey, 1 second.
There is. Huh?
Oh, this a little side note, but I was just wondering. So as far as no prophet between Jesus and Muhammad, and I was thinking, what about the couple of prophets that the Quran mentions that, because you mentioned Gentile prophets, and I was thinking, what about the ones that the Quran names? Like I never looked up when they were from. So
Like Selah?
Yeah. So that's what I mean. I just looked them up. So I had no idea.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was supposed to be like 1,000 years earlier or what. But yeah, I just looked it up and it said Prophet Saleh lived around the 3rd millennium BC.
Around the time of Job.
Yeah, and then this was supposedly a couple centuries after Hud, which is also mentioned. And so I looked up Hud. The exact time Prophet Hud lived is unknown, but based on Islamic tradition, he is believed to have lived between 2500 BC and 2200 BC. All right, in case anyone was wondering that, like me.
Yeah, and there are some prophets that no one knows who they are that are mentioned in the Quran. So, interesting times. But yeah, the Quran itself, none of the prophets it mentions, other than the Rasul that were sent to Antioch, which is a problem with the doctrine of the Fatra because they're called Rasul. So in the Tafsir, it is Peter, John, and Paul that are the Rasul sent to Antioch from the Quran because it talks about how 2 were sent and then they were supplemented with a 3rd. The early Tafsir all identify that as Peter, John, and Paul. So in the early Islamic scholars, they consider Paul a Rasul. The later Islamic scholars blame Paul for everything. So you have that as, are they actually prophets? They're not Nabi, they're Rasul. But messengers they're supposed to be like the ones who give the law or give some kind of revelation. So there are Islamic inconsistencies within this doctrine that contradicts Bukhari here. But the general understanding is that there is a fatra from Jesus to Muhammad. That there is not any wahi given specifically to it, and that the Rasul that are available are just reciting what Isa gave. So, such as like Peter and Paul and John. So you have that. You have the Jews were already misguided. You have so many things in the Quran and in the Sunnah that rejects the Jews. So I don't think I need to substantiate that much. But is the Talmud actually scripture according to Islamic theology? So if you say yes, and the Talmud does contain wahi, and it is scripture, then that contradicts the Quran because there's no prophet to receive it. So if yes, and the Jews preserved earlier Mosaic and prophetic truth orally through an Isnad chain, then Islam's charge against the Jews as corrupted and who concealed and who twisted with their tongues scripture doesn't really make sense, especially because we don't see it anywhere in tradition. So the best preservation of it would be the Talmud still, but that still breaks what the Quran talks about with the scripture given to Moses. If no, and the Talmud is merely human understanding and reasoning, then how did the Quran reproduce its contents? Why is it echoing man-made reasoning, not divine revelation? If it's partially true and partially untrue, if there's some wahib and some corruption, as they say about the Injil, then that undermines the entire Quranic claim that guidance and knowledge came only through Allah's direct sending of prophets and angels, and also contradicts the idea that there is human reasoning that can produce divine truths, or that it is inimitable, that it can't be copied or done by humans. You also run into problems of, Wahi in general being given through Jews and trusting it. Why is it that Muhammad is trusting the Wahi of the Jews after Isa, when Isa was supposed to be the one that guided the Jews during that time period? There's so many problems this opens up. Yeah. Either way, you undermine Islam. So how did he get the material? Probably oral. The book would have been very expensive and not widely circulated. It would have been like several tens of thousands of dollars to make a single copy of the Talmud back then. Especially because it had been written on parchment. That's very expensive. People don't understand, like, a single gospel was like several $1,000s of today's money to make back then. So making something like the Talmud, which is 2 million words, would have been in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to make it.
So making a copy of the Torah, copy of the Torah, I heard, for scribes would be about a year. Take you about a year's work to make a copy of the Torah. And the Talmud, way bigger. So yeah, that's some serious work there. So probably best case scenario, Muhammad was hearing from people who were familiar with it somehow.
Right. And we also get that the Quran constantly accuses him of being a false prophet over and over and over and over again. And they're like, hey, this is just what was given to you of men of old. Well, if they're talking about the Jews previously, that makes a lot of sense. And also brings up an obvious question. Why did this audience accuse him of doing such a thing if there's no truth in it? You don't say that it smells like poop if there's no poop around. Why is this the most common rebuke of Muhammad in the Quran? Unless he's actually the ear, unless he's actually doing these things. Mm-hmm. So how does the Quran actually use the Bible? And
hang on, put that back up.
Hang on.
It's just really important for people to get their minds around this stuff. Guys, this is when you want to screenshot here. Got it? Want to screenshot this. 16103, important. 625, 831. Hey, there's a few more important ones that you don't even have on here, man. This is not exhaustive. This is not exhaustive.
This is not exhaustive. I do have more in the actual document itself, but I couldn't fit everything on the slides.
Okay.
So this is an abridged version of these ones. Yeah.
Yeah, and guys, everyone who's watching, these are good verses to just share regularly, like on X or something like this. And it's something that can help Muslims really start to think through this. Why is the Quran constantly mentioning all the people around Muhammad who are just saying, come on, man, we know where you're getting this stuff from. We heard the same thing from that dude over there. But no, you're saying it. Oh, that means you're a prophet. Come on. Right?
Well, yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, it's like, okay, if the people who are there, the people who are around Muhammad, he's like, I have a revelation. We're like, we just heard the dude that you're talking to telling that story the other day. And now you're saying you got it by revelation. Come on, dude. The point is, if they're coming to that conclusion and they're the people who are there who knew and they're saying, we've heard this, okay, that means the story's circulating and Muhammad's called the ear. We're talking about inference to the best explanation. Where's Muhammad coming up with this stuff? If people around him are telling the stories, and we know, according to the Quran itself, that people around him are telling these stories, what's the best explanation for where he's getting this stuff from? I don't know. I'd go with the people around him for 200.
Right. Which I thought it was interesting that you brought up the Bayesian argument for the Islamic dilemma a couple of days ago. I guess 2 days ago.
I was just thinking you can make all kinds of Bayesian arguments out of this. I was thinking that
you really can. It is actually way worse than people realize, because there's at least 100 parallels between the Talmud and the Quran. At least 100. So the Bayesian argument for this is amazing.
Oh, and by the way, if you've been on YouTube 11 months now.
Yeah.
You think you're an expert? You've only been on here 11 months, man. Smelling like baby formula. No, I wanted to point out. So you have you have a bunch of videos on already, but this is a topic you just recently started doing a deep dive into. So I would
Right.
recommend doing sort of separate videos on individual points. You may have been planning to do this anyway, but start off, give sort of a regular introduction where you recap the relevance, why this is actually important, and then go one story. I mean, one passage from the Talmud, and oh, look at the Quran. And I can see in your document that you put them side by side. You've got the Talmud passage and the Quran passage side by side with all the parallels marked. Yeah, so one topic per video, and then end of the video. And so now we can understand why they called Muhammad the ear, and now we can understand why they said, and we know what they say. And we know well that they say only a man teaches him. Now we can see why they were saying this. Maybe in the 8 to 15 minute range, depending on what kind of content it is. But maybe the 8 to 15 minute range for videos, and have a handful of those. Those will be very shareable. And what you'll want to do is link those back to some big video, like your Talmudic dilemma video. And that the shorter videos are easier to pass around and share, and then they link back to your longer video. And I think this is something that would work. This would work on YouTube. This would be good for YouTube.
Yeah, I agree. I stream twice a week. I stream Mondays and Wednesdays. My Monday streams is a live Bible.
Streams are dead, man. No one streams anymore.
I stream Monday for Bible studies, and then Wednesday on Islam.
Yeah, so the streams are good for like community building. Like, you just get to know people more and more because you're like interacting with people in the chat, and then people in the chat start getting to know each other, and everyone starts getting to know each other. So it's different from when you post a video and like there are comments and stuff, but you're not paying attention to them like you are in a live stream or interacting with them and stuff like that. So live streams are better for like community building. Regular videos are better for they're way more shareable. You get way more subscribers. You don't get a lot of subscribers from live streams because you end up with mostly the same people coming and watching and hanging out and stuff like that. Whereas your videos, then they start popping up in people's recommendations and stuff. And so anyway, yeah, they serve different purposes, but yeah, could have both.
Yeah, that's the plan. That's the goal. I have one out already on Surah 27, where I read all of the Targum Shinai, and I read all of Surah 27 for the relevant portions on Solomon. I give commentary on how it's stupid and how it doesn't make any sense from the Bible perspective, show how it was updated and changed in the Jewish sources, and then show how Islam adopted the Jewish sources. And then I feed it to AI to see if the AI thinks it's plagiarism, and all of the AI give it like a 95+% chance that it's plagiarism. I fed it to 4 different AI models and see what they said about it. And they're like, "Oh yeah, this is obvious plagiarism."
Wait, you've got all this in the video?
Yeah, all that's in the video.
Oh, that's pretty funny then.
Yeah. So that's the first video. I titled that "Plagiarism of the Quran," so I'm gonna make that into a series. And the next video, I'm not sure exactly the content I want to go through, but it might be the Judgment Day stuff. But the stories they work so well because people know the stories and they know that, oh, this is obviously false.
One second.
But the theology itself is important.
Annika here says, David, I have not listened to his videos, but knowledge doesn't have anything to do with how long you've been on YouTube. Well, knowledge of YouTube has to do with how long you've been on YouTube. You can learn really quickly. You see lots of young people come in and jump on YouTube and pick things up really quickly. But I know we have YouTubers in the chat. That wasn't just for this guy. I'm pointing out, okay, he hasn't been on for a year, so I'm gonna give some overarching bit of insights that I've gleaned because I've been on since like 2007. So in your face. I forget what your name is because I already took the comment down. But no, we have people who have YouTube channels. We have people who are just getting started on YouTube. We have people who are thinking about YouTube, and people always ask the basic questions. So I try to share some of that information. And one of the questions I get: do I do live streams? Do I do regular videos? And they're good for different things. So I apologize, but not really, for sharing information that may be helpful to someone. I'll never do it again. These lips are sealed. I will never again give any advice on YouTube. All right, go ahead.
There's someone in the chat that said, "Can we sue Islam for plagiarism or for copyright?"
Yeah. We should have Christian Gadfly's a lawyer. We should have a little mock trial.
Oh, that would be funny. Oh, yes.
Yeah, we could have the Jews, some Jewish rabbis suing Muhammad. We could get vocab as Prophet Muhammad being sued in court. And them dude, we could do that. We could have like a 2-hour video of the trial with all the evidence being put forward and Muhammad coming up with all these defenses. That'd be funny.
He just found his camera for the first time because his child hit it. I'll DM him and see what he says about it. You want to make a video? That is pretty good. Okay. So there's a lot of the YouTubers that are on the Islamic Dilemma server. You're the only one that's not from the Act 17.
Yeah, people keep telling me how to like, hey, here's how you use Discord and stuff like that. But I remember my kids trying to explain it to me, and I couldn't get it. I couldn't get TikTok. I watched like a dozen tutorials on TikTok. I still couldn't figure it out. Like people seriously underestimate how terrible I am at technology. I know how to use like 3 programs. Whenever they come up with an update, like I can't figure it out again. And it's like learning a new program that I get miserable.
We'll eventually figure it out. But okay. Back to the thing. So, how the Quran actually uses the Bible. There's 3 general categories where he either gets it right and there's basically nothing changed, but you get that with Yahya and his birth and the Zechariah thing, and like that's all Surah 19. I need to whip myself because I didn't actually put the reference for the announcement to Mary.
Ooh, we can't trust you anymore.
I know. I missed one. It gets also, so there's lots of different things that like that. It's kind of hard to make that list though, because there's so few stories in the Quran that is not at least a little wrong. It's mostly just the New Testament parallels that it gets kind of right, although a lot of them come from Gnostics. So, but there is that category. That category does exist where the Quran actually uses the Bible correctly. The second way is that it gets it just from Jews, from the Talmud, the Midrash, the Targums. So the Midrash is commentaries. Talmud is essentially commentary. It's mostly the Gemara, which is the commentary on the Mishnah. So you have commentary inside of the Talmud. You have commentary outside of that in the rabbis, and a lot of those predate Islam or are contemporary to Islam.
Hey,
they also have the Targums.
Hey, yo, I don't mean to interrupt. You can go back like a sentence or two. But I was about to miss this. But Apostate of Allah here says, I have no idea how to use Discord, but she also works on the Islamic Dilemma and makes videos and so on. Ooh. So, hey, Apostate of Allah, Apostate of Allah, why don't we make some sort of effort to, we'll both kind of separately get someone to break down Discord for us or watch a video on it, and then we can kind of go into Discord at the same time with everyone else. Maybe we'll set something up, and then they can all break things down for us, and then I still won't understand it, but they can just they can all be there and like be breaking it down for us, and then we can both figure it out, and then we can both be joining in the Discord.
We could do that and record it so you have it for reference for later.
There we go. Yeah. So hey, let me know if you want to do that, and then we'll pick a day, and we can tell everyone. We'll all jump into the Discord, and then we'll know. Okay. Then we'll know how to use it, and then we can be involved.
I'll email you the invitation link to the channel. Okay. So we have the Targums as well, where a lot of the material is coming from the Targums in some of the more Aggitic, but the Targums are actually not that crazy. There are some random wild, she agrees. There's some random wild added stuff inside of the Targums and the later Targums. But the early Targums are all written around the time of Jesus or before the time of Jesus. And the later Targums are like circulating orally inside the synagogues, but they're compiled before 200 AD. So before the main writing of the Talmud, the Targums are finished. Yet this stuff still, other than like some of the way later Targums like Targum Shinai, which is more like 500 AD, But the main targums, the main ones that people actually use for scholarly understanding and actually reading the Aramaic, would be at the time of Jesus or just after the time of Jesus, like Targum Jonathan, Onkelos, Neophiti, like those, the big ones, or Pseudo Jonathan for the Torah. So you get a lot of stories like that, like the Abraham smashing idols, Solomon, the Queen of Sheba, for the Targum side of it, but also like hundreds of other ones. So this is the main category of how the Quran actually uses the previous scriptures, or just gets it totally wrong by itself. So the Mary and Miriam dilemma, where it confuses them, the Saul and Gideon, where Saul somehow has an army that God tells him to go drink water a certain way with the cup in the hand, and that like thins his army.
Sounds awfully familiar. Awfully familiar.
It sounds, yeah. Then Haman and Pharaoh, and like all the ridiculous stuff with Pharaoh, with the crucifixion, with the Tower of Babel, with just pretty much everything Pharaoh related is wrong. And it doesn't get it from the Talmud. I've checked a lot of those. It doesn't get it from the Talmud. So that's how it's actually being used. And these are the most common books. You can take a screenshot of these. These are the books I'd recommend to read if you want to see how similar the Quran is to the Talmud. I would recommend Bereshit's Rabbah, primarily, of the 5 ones I list here. So these are all the commentaries that are, you want to say something?
Oh yeah, I just wanted for people who aren't. I mean, I'm familiar with some of the book names by going like Sanhedrin and stuff by going to it for passages. But so you've got the Talmud. The Talmud is big. But I don't know how big these are like by comparison. Like is there like 200 of these, and so these are actually
There's 63.
63. Okay, 63. Yeah. Okay, and you're saying these are the relevant
what's
ones.
Called Right. Well,
relevant for the Quran. Relevant for the Quran.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. All of them are slightly relevant for the Quran because even I don't have some of them listed here like Nida. That's really relevant. But the ones right here are Midrash that come after the Talmud. They're not technically part of the Talmud, depending on like who you ask. But the other ones are Talmudic from the Babylon Talmud. The Mishnah is broken down into 63 what's called tractates or treaties on different laws and rules. So like Rosh Hashanah is the festival laws, Sanhedrin is the high court laws and some of like the death penalty stuff. The Avodah Zarah is like the strange fire. So you have, if I'm remembering that one correctly, it's the things with a lot of it's on Judgment Day. Whenever we go through the Judgment Day passages, it's going to be amazing to, I think, everyone here, how similar the Islamic theology is to Avodah Zarah and to Rosh Hashanah, and to Sanhedrin. So those are the 3 theology books that it copies from. Bereshit Rabbah is Rabbah means big or large, or like if you were to say like, Toda Rabbah, it's like thank you very much. It's like an amplifier word. So if you know German, it's like schon, like bitte schon. It means large. So the Bereshit Rabbah is the big book of Genesis commentaries. It's very lengthy. It's very long. There's a lot of really good material in it for this argument, and we'll go through a number of them. So it's my contention that the Quran actually does confirm the Torah. It's just not confirming the actual Torah. It's confirming the oral Torah because of how similar it is to it. So I think Muhammad was legitimately thinking that he was copying and being a good ear, listening to the stories and faithfully preserving them and paraphrasing them in the Quran. It's just that he didn't understand that the Torah is not the Torah, that the oral Torah, the Mishnah, is not the real Torah. Yeah.
And by the way, everyone, I mean, part of making an inference to the best explanation is just the one that requires that fits all the evidence and requires the least number of additional assumptions and things like that. And it's just pretty straightforward. If you have a guy who doesn't have access to the texts, but he has access to people who are sharing the stories, some of those stories are going to be from this, some of those stories are going to be from that, some of them might be from the Torah, some of them might be from, lots of them are going to be from the Talmud. And if he does it, if his only access to this is hearing it from people, then when he hears a story, makes perfect sense for him to think, oh, that's the Torah. That's the Torah, even if it's not.
Right. Yeah. So Ash did correct me a little bit. So the Avodah Zarah can also mean strange work, and it's all about idol worship. So whenever we get to the Judgment Day thing, there's a lot of things about idol worship and the kofar and the shitef or shutef or shatef. Like there's three different ways you can say it, which is to associate a partner with God. So we'll get to that in a little bit, but yeah, it could mean strange fire. I believe I've seen that before, but I have multiple people saying that it also means strange work, and it's just about the idolatry. So the Quran actually thinks the Talmud is scripture. So we have Surah 5:44 that says, "We revealed the Torah containing guidance and light," which is also Talmudic for the guidance and light aspect, "by which the prophets who submitted themselves to Allah made judgments for Jews. So too did the rabbis and scholars judge according to Allah's book with which they were entrusted and in which they were made the keepers," or the witnesses, depending on how you translate that Arabic. So rabbis are part of the class of people who are the keepers of the Torah. Strange. Why the rabbis specifically? And then in 45, we prescribed, we ordained for them in it life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, nose for nose, ear for ear, tooth for ear, like so on. Retaliation for injuries, which according to Ibn Kathir is the blood money. It is a monetary payment done to injuries. In Bava Kama, we get that anyone who injures another is liable to pay compensation for that injury due to the 5 types of indemnity. He must pay for damage, for pain, for medical costs, for loss of livelihood, or for humiliation. And then it goes into a long diatribe on how each of those things happen and the justification from the Bible. So the Talmud more or less rejects the idea of bodily injuries being inflicted for bodily injuries, and they focus more on a financial retribution rather than a literal retribution, because they argue that it's idiotic in some ways, that you can't just do it. Like if someone poked an eye out while fighting, if someone only has one working eye, would you poke out their one working eye? That is not something that is just, because that would make them totally blind versus only half blind. So me, I only have one working eye. If you were to take out my good eye, that would be a much worse punishment than if I had taken out one of your eyes and both of them were good. So the Quran is taking more of the idea of retaliation for injuries being more of a pay, which we get on Ibn Kathir, talking about the problem of blood money. And he says that the argument that was happening is the reason why that ayah was explained. So this is adding more of the Talmudic understanding of retaliation, not the biblical literal understanding of retaliation. We also get in 532 that whoever, like we decreed, so this is again Allah saying that he gave to the children of Israel that, you know, whoever kills a man is as if they kill the whole world, whoever saves a man is as if they save the whole world. This comes from Sanhedrin 37a, as most people are aware of this one. This one is word for word. Yet, it is saying that it is decreed by Allah for the Jews. This is not a biblical idea. This is a purely Talmudic idea that was from one rabbi. So this is the Quran affirming the words of a rabbi as wahi. And then if we keep going, the comparison of those who are entrusted with the Torah, yet do not apply it, is as the comparison of a donkey carrying books. In Avodah Zarah, we have, in a bunch of other places too, we have the yoke of Torah. We have the idea that taking on the sages, taking on the worship of Yahweh by happily placing onto yourself, it's seen as like this noble, good thing. And we also get this idea of like a donkey to a burden. A person should always make himself subjugated to matters of Torah, like an ox to a yoke, or like a donkey to a burden. So we have the Quran being polemical, using the same expression against the Jews, making fun of them in the context of Surah 62. So we have Muhammad taking an idea from the Jews, from the rabbis, and using it as a polemic against them. But Allah says that the comparison of those who are entrusted with in the Torah, so, and then he also gives one for the Injil in the next ayah. So in this section, it calls the donkey carrying books found in the Torah itself, yet this is found in the Talmud. And then keep going, you also have the unlettered prophet. And I talked to Giant DOC about this, and they said the Umi there could also mean Gentile. And there are Gentile prophets within the Talmud, and there's not Gentile prophets within the Bible other than maybe Balaam, but there's debate about that in and of itself. So you have the idea
it's also,
of a
it can also just refer to someone like uneducated.
right, yeah,
And so
unlearned.
there have been people who said this is actually some modified version of something that was about Jesus, like when they're saying, "Oh, how does this man have this great learning, even though he hasn't studied," and things like that. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, that's a rough part of the Quran is not very clear, in spite of what Allah says about it.
yeah. So you have that, and then the Gemara is like, hey, there are actually these Gentile prophets, and Balaam is described as a prophet unto Moses. In another place, it is only one place in Scripture, and it's used as a comparison to Moses, and it's polemical against Balaam. So it's not a benefit to Balaam, but we do have a comparison where the prophet unto Moses, according to some rabbis, can't be fulfilled. And they say that the Gentile prophet of Balaam was sent to all of the nations. Therefore, he is a prophet like Moses, yet inferior to him. So it's still polemical against Balaam, but Muhammad might have read that, misunderstood it, and said, hey, I'm from Ishmael. It was Ishmaelites that were using Balaam, and therefore, maybe that's where he's getting the idea of him being the unlettered prophet. That is way more speculative than these other ones that are more clear cut. But there's this possible understanding within that. And it's not just the Quran, the Tafsir and the Hadith do this too. So the Tafsir, Ibn Kathir and Jalalain, like Jalalain on Surah 27, uses Targum Shinai to understand that the Queen of Sheba had hairy legs and why she had hairy legs. So Jalalain is using rabbis to understand the Quran. We get that in a variety of other places as well. I have a couple of them in this presentation, but I haven't done a deep dive into the Tafsir yet to go through all of that. But a lot of the Sunnah is also from the Jewish understanding of things, and I have a good bit of that in the presentation. So you also have the cultural influences we have.
Yep, let's pause real quick.
Okay.
Pause real quick. Take these super chats so we don't have like 1,000 of them at the end. Well, I know we're not going to have 1,000 at the end, but anyway, wanted to cover these real quick. And the reason is some super chats are actually relevant to a point, and if you deal with it much later, you don't recall anything that it was talking about. Is it possible for Westhoff or equivalent to confirm if Peshitta would have been the only possible Baina Yadehi and Jil in 7th century Arabia? Seems like case closed. If so, since anyone can check the Peshitta interlinear online today. Now the problem is we don't know exactly what's available. I mean, you'd have to strongly suspect, based on some of the stories about Jesus giving life to clay birds and so on, that Muhammad's familiar with stories from different groups and so on. We know that I think it was Emperor Justinian. He expelled heretics from the Roman Empire, and a bunch of them went to Arabia, which accounts for some of the sources that we're not familiar with. But so you would have this
The Dietest one.
God Logic has pointed out that the Muslims had contact with the Ethiopians, so he would have had an idea of their scriptures. I mean, Muhammad had a slave girl that he got pregnant. Some say that she became his wife because he got her pregnant and so on. But I mean, she was a Copt, so it makes sense to say, hey, this is the best thing we know. Like this is the best case we have for what he would have been talking about. But it's kind of hard to rule out other things because we're not dealing with a ton of information about what's available during the time. And let's see here. No comment there.
You care if I go to the bathroom real quick?
No, go for it. Just run through the super chats. No comment there. Thank you, though. Let's see. Celeria. As soon as he's gone, then we get one for him. All right, I'll come back to them. Hang on. I'm looking at as soon as he leaves, then I see these comments that are for him. We'll come back to them. Let's see. David, 11 months old, is an adult in Islam. That's true. He's been on YouTube for 11 months, which means he's ready for some online YouTube marriage. Let's see. We have, please pray for Louise, 85 years old, to be saved. Thanks. So you guys have your prayer request there. You hammered it. Not out of context. Very interesting stuff. Let's see. Chris, this is for Chris too. It is funny as soon as he runs out. Let's see. Apologize. Benitazs. I don't know what that means. Hang on. Let's see. Ezra in the Talmud is the one used to condemn Jews. Team Pats. No. Team Pittsburgh Steelers. Would the mock trial be in the boom boom room? No, it'd be different, but you got to have Muhammad with an explosive vest, even in court. That's just a fact. Let's see. We had a couple comments for you. Where'd it go? Okay. Here we go. This is from Solaria. It says, hey there, defending a line. I wish I could actually spend more time watching this stream live, but I'm glad to be able to stop by and say hello. But Solaria is one we should be seeing in the Discord. You guys know each other from Discord, right? Okay.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
He's done a lot of stuff on these
the
Talmud.
Talmud.
The Quran.
Islamic Dilemma, yeah. Don't you talk about the hyena demons. That's mine. You got that?
I'm not supposed to talk about it.
All right. Then talk about something else. Chris, welcome to the Based Club.
Based.
Based. Let's see. Yes, we had, would the trial be in the boom boom room? No, but yes, he would definitely still need his full Islamic gear. Maybe that could be brought up as an objection. Objection, Your Honor. He has an explosive vest, but he can claim that it's important to his religion and that we're Islamophobes if we don't allow him to have his explosive vest. Was Jesus crucified by Canaanites, Miriam timeline, or Romans, Mary timeline, according to Sahih sources? Gaping plot hole. Not in the zut sense. Miriam timeline.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there's actually an interesting thought. One of the guys in the Islamic Dilemma Project, he's hypothesized that Muhammad thought all of world history was only like 300 years old. And Pharaoh lived like right at the time of Jesus. So it would make way more, like, if all of the events of Pharaoh are happening in 200 BC, that makes way more sense and there's no anachronisms. So you might make a case that he just didn't understand the timeline of biblical history. And that's why he conflated Mary and Miriam. That's why he conflated Haman. That's why he conflated crucifixion. It's just that he had a weird, skewed timeline of world events. I think you can defend it, but it still has some plot holes in it.
Yeah, he's definitely like seriously off on time.
Yeah.
Here you have what's this Chris guy's channel? Seems very knowledgeable. Yeah, that is in the description box. Oh,
That's my editor.
Yeah. Oh. Terrible. No, now that I remember, though, I should send you a collaboration link, and then it comes up as a collab. So I'll send you a link after we're done. If I don't, send me a reminder. But I can send you a collaboration link, and then your name will be listed there in the video as well.
Yeah, I saw you do that with IP. I wanted to know how you did that, because I collaborate with a newer YouTuber as well, and I wanted to try to do that myself, but I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, they explained it to me when we were over at Turning Point. You just like on your original page when you're setting things up and entering the title, if you go down to the like whatever it is more section, then
more options.
Yeah, you go down there and click on collaboration, and you enter the channel, and then it gives you a link, and then you send that link to the person. They have to accept it, and then it's done. Your show got me interested in learning about Eastern Orthodoxy. Is there any version of the Bible you could recommend reading? He's talking to you.
I don't think so.
Who are you talking to?
I'm assuming you. Maybe from AP?
Yeah, I would guess that. But is there any version of the Bible you could recommend reading? Yeah, we've talked about that before. As far as like if you mean versions of the Bible, like translations of the Bible, I've said like the one that you're most likely to read. That's what I've said. Now, don't get there are weird translations and things that throw things off or things that distort things, but any of the mainline versions, the main question you want to ask yourself is, do you prefer like a very literal translation, which are almost like word for word, but they tend to not flow as well? Versus something like the NIV, which kind of smooths things over and stuff. And so do you want something that just is easy to read and flows well? If so, probably go in the direction of like the NIV. If you want a more of a word for word, then like ESV or NASB or something like that. But yeah, it's go ahead and go to something like Bible Gateway, pull up like 5 or 6 of the main translations, pick a passage you're interested in, read the passage in each translation. Whichever one you like reading best, go ahead and grab that Bible. Let's see. Zane, are you pro-Pally? You whine just like them. What is this? You talking to Zane? You posted a super chat to Zane. If God said, "I am not a man" in Hosea 11:9, then when did he change?
The incarnation.
Yeah, the incarnation. Yeah, guess what? Every Christian on the planet would agree. God was not a man. God was not a man as of Hosea 11:9. Incarnation had not occurred. Let's see. D. Wood, I have a project for him, the one I told you about. You know about this?
No, actually, I emailed Ash to join in on this project. Ash, if you check your email, I sent you something.
And he didn't even respond. Wow.
Didn't even respond. He responded to my comment on his video. He just didn't respond to the email.
And he's happy to respond a million times here, just not when it really matters most. Wow.
Yeah, you should be able to find a link to that, Ash.
Out of subject, you don't have to get into, but as new followers of both of you, I want to know, what is the beef with Sam and you? I want to know your side. I don't care what you want to know. It's none of your business. I never get the idea of people wanting, like, because what you really want me to do is say, here's why I'm not working with Sam anymore, right? So because of this and this and this and this and this. So you want me to talk trash and talk. He's fine doing that. I'm not. I don't like doing that. I have all this stuff in the world that I like to do. None of it involves me talking about other people being messed up. Again, he loves doing that. I don't. Lots of people love doing that. I don't even care a whole lot. It's just not what I like to do. So go look for drama somewhere else and go over to his channel. You get plenty. Look, right there, I've done more than I've ever done, and it's just because I know he's pushing all kinds of buttons on AP. So bound to have it out here. Just let it be known, was not my choice. I've decided if I don't want to work with someone, I'm just going to quietly not work with them. I have to humiliate him. Sadly, other people do not agree with that, and they demand that we just have it out. And it's like, okay, I'm giving up. I'm giving up on being the guy who doesn't argue this stuff in front of the world, and I just try to deal with it quietly. I've given up, guys. I give up. Everyone wants war. We'll have war. Just know I did not want it. I was not the one who wanted it. Let's see. Momo objects PDFs as his jury switch to white men. Momo objects PDFs as his jury switch to white men. What are you laughing at? Thank you, gentlemen, for helping bring Muslims out of darkness and into the light. Guys, you haven't seen how many Muslims are coming out. And when I just made a video, I used to make them a lot of time, just regularly. I would put together a bunch of comments from ex-Muslims, and then I just did it recently. And now, I mean, my goodness, like hundreds, hearing from hundreds under one video. I'll hear from hundreds of ex-Muslims, but I want to get back to just occasionally tossing one of those videos out there, because one of the things, it's like easy to miss this sort of stuff. As far as like things that are about to happen in the future, Muslims leaving Islam. In the past, when there were so few ex-Muslims and you almost never hear from them, if you go back 20 years, there were like a handful of public ex-Muslims. It was like Nabil, Ayan Hirsi Ali, couple of others, but not, I mean, most of them, even if they left Islam, they kept quiet. Now they're everywhere. And part of the reason that is so significant and we need to constantly emphasize that is back then it was hard to leave Islam and be like the only ex-Muslim around. You're a target. I mean, and I don't just mean for physical violence. Maybe no one's getting violent. Maybe you're in the United States and you're in a safe area, but you become the target of like harassment and attacks and threats. I don't mean physical attacks. I mean just everyone just coming at you because you're the one, right? Now that there's so many, they're gonna lose their ability to just keep people so reluctant to leave Islam, right? You know, there's a huge community out there. It's not as big a deal, and you're not like the center of all the attacks and so on. So the more ex-Muslims are out there, the easier it will be to leave Islam. So these are good, awesome, exciting times. Let's see. Where'd that go? So Talmud filled Muhammad's ear. I'm screenshotting it. That's not Jack. Right? You were so close to having a rhyme. It's the Talmud filled Muhammad's ear, and Al-Zut filled his rear. That's it. That's the new line. You can make a poem out of that. That could be a rap line. That could be all kinds of things.
I thought that's what it said. That's so much better. Filled in the rest.
That it works. It works. But it's funny. I think it's a little better with the rhyme. Please have this funny. Please have God Logic as LeVar Burton doing Reading Rainbow in the Boom Boom Room, explaining Muhammad to Muhammad. I'm screenshotting that. But remind me of that because I might forget even though I just screenshotted it. But yeah, God Logic could definitely do. LeVar Burton from Reading Rainbow. I was telling God Logic, see these young guys, they don't know about stuff, but I was telling God Logic about the movie The Last Dragon with Shonuff, the Shogun of Harlem. And I was thinking he's like the embodiment of what Dawa guys would worship, right? They love that like bravado. I can humiliate everyone, but that's like Shonuff, the Shogun of Harlem, always talking trash. He would be like the ultimate Dawa guy. So I was telling God Logic he should have Shonuff, the Shogun of Dawa, as like a Dawa character that he portrays. Who's always spouting complete nonsense, but he's really forceful with it. Let's see. Hi, David Wood. Sorry, I used your super chat for unrelated things. Go Steelers. Nice. Thank you for your honesty. No drama needed. Yeah, good. There won't be any drama here, but AP is going to be back. And guess what? AP doesn't like talking about stuff publicly, and he was just, I don't want to talk about this. It's not other people's business. I'm like, ain't going to work like that. Not going to work like that. So I anticipate some drama, whether AP or anyone else wants it or not, because some people aren't going to let him deal with this stuff between him and his wife and so on. Or even like with him and his wife, his church and stuff. No one's going to let them deal with that on their own. Let's see. Trump dance with Malaysian Muslim girls. Yep. Malaysian dancing girls bumping and grinding up in there. We love the ex-Muslim videos you make with the comments from ex-Muslims. We send them to each other. Praise the Lord. Yeah, that's what because I haven't made those in a while, and I just made one, and I was like, wow, people really like that, and it's like, and I like it because I like when I see a video and it's just like ex-Muslim from here, ex-Muslim from there. So the next one, which I should make this week, I'm going to put out a Zohran Mamdani video first because that election's right around the corner. Just want my thoughts on record before this guy becomes mayor. But after that, yeah, I've got Mary Harp sent me an online map. It's for people like if you visited countries where you can click the countries you visited, and it's got a big globe there, and so you can kind of click I've been here, I've been here, I've been here. That's what it's for. But as I'm reading out the ex-Muslims, I'm going to click on the countries, and then we'll see kind of the global map of where all these people are from. And I have to say, as someone who was around 20 years ago when there were very few ex-Muslims, these days are extremely, extremely awesome and encouraging. Good times, good times, good times. All right. You ready to jump back into it?
Yeah. Let's get it.
All right. Here we go.
Okay. So we get a lot of the blessings and titles and names of God from the Talmud. We also get that Ishmaelites are Arabs. So the idea of this connection is directly in the Talmud. And we have this maybe being one of the origins of how the Quran talks about the Torah. So the Torah, which the Holy One, praise be to him, gave to Moses, was white fire engraved in black fire. It was fire mixed with fire, hewn from fire. So we have the idea that the Torah was given unto Moses. And we also have this idea that the Holy One, blessed be he, dedicated and dictated, and Moses repeated after him and wrote the text. From this point forward, with respect to Moses' death, the Holy One, blessed be he, dictated, and Moses wrote with tears. Which is kind of a sad thought. But the word for to write is katev. And that might be, and it actually is where Aramaic gets the word for book. So the idea of kitab given to Moses might be from this section where we have specifically the Torah being given to Moses and Moses writing the text, but it being written through divine dictation specifically. So this might be where he got the idea that the angel Gabriel, that this mixed with some later passages which we might get to today, those two things combined is likely where he's getting the idea of dictation of the Quran. We also have isnad within the Talmud.
Hey, I think it's kind of interesting where you're kind of like you'll bring up a Quran passage and a passage from the Talmud, and it's like, okay, this is obviously where this is coming from, obviously.
Right.
Another, you're like,
yeah,
not sure, but this could be it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is going to be speculation. If we're taking a Bayesian approach, we can compare the actual text and get like what percentage chance is this actual copying versus coincidence. And the benefit of this approach is, one, it's not necessarily polemical. It's just presenting this information in a way that destroys Islam. But it's in and of itself, all it is information. The information is that the Quran wholesale is copied from the Talmud. But a lot of it we're going to have to be able to debate about, because some of these, like Turkey, the Rebbe Eliezer, like that comes really late into history. It might come after the Quran. We have some of these other Jerusalem Midrashic accounts and even Babylonian Midrashic accounts that do come later. So you have the debate of the origin of the books themselves and the likelihood of where the source came from for Muhammad. So like the idea of breastfeeding in the Quran being 24 months, that might have come from the Greeks or it might have come from the Jews. I don't know. But I can present the evidence I have for it being from the Jews, and then that is just an added case for it being from the Talmud. So this is a death by a thousand cuts argument, mostly just showing the parallels between the two. And I'm not always going to be like perfect at it. I'm sure some of the stuff might be, hit or miss, but a lot of this is just word for word the same. And that's where the power of this argument comes from.
This is it's not unrelated note, but it's in kind of a different direction. But this was a long time, probably 20 years ago. I was reading a book about the Apostle Paul, and so he was studying under Gamaliel and so on. But they were obsessed with authoritative tradition, as far as I got this from Rabbi so and so, who got it from so and so, and by the way, that's why people were surprised when Jesus started speaking, because he would say, I say unto you, I say unto you, I say unto you, which was different from them, because he's just saying it like he's the authority, whereas the rabbis would quote other rabbis, respected rabbis, as the authorities and stuff. And anyway, it was pointed out that like these guys were obsessed with accurately transmitting what was said. And so Paul, because he was trained like that, that's why he wanted to go to the apostles to confirm. And basically he shifted the authority of the transmission from like rabbis to, hey, I need to go back to the apostles. But he still had this, I want accurate information that has this authority when I pass it on. And so that's why I go up and see the apostles of Jesus.
It's really cool. We also have Hegeliel here. So we have I believe, the teacher of Paul inside of this Isnad chain. So we have this all over Talmud. It's just the default, as you just mentioned. This is how they would establish authority, but it doesn't have the same type of problems the Hadith science has, because the Hadith science has Muhammad is the standard for truth. If you want something to be true, just make it up and say Muhammad said it. Whereas the rabbis here just want to faithfully, accurately transmit what each rabbi believed about something. They had no ulterior motives to prove something, because the whole point of the Gemara is it's debate. So if you want something to be true, just input your own side of the debate. You don't have to lie about anything. So there is no onus for the people who make the Isnad chains of the Talmud to lie about any of it. There is within Islam. So it's actually a stronger Isnad chain, an Isnad science, than what Islam has. And by the Quran using the Talmudic content in this way, it grants the Jewish oral tradition the very reliability that Islam denies that it has. So if you believe that the Talmud is actual revelation, actual wahi from Allah from the time of Moses to now, that's a longer Isnad chain, that's 2,000 years, and it's more authoritative because they have no reason to doubt any of it, and it was faithfully transmitted even though they were a part of the Daleen, like the ones who are led astray. So if you're believing that this is faithful wahi, like true wahi, then you have to say that the Isnad chain of Judaism is stronger and more impervious to corruption than the ones of Islam, because we know that Bukhari threw out hundreds of thousands of them.
So we can say, basically rabbis can point to Muslim transmitters and be like, you guys are little weaklings, you little weakest nods.
Right, yeah. So I put in one here that has 6 different rabbis in the transmission chain, but there's actually one in the Talmud that's 41 people. So you have 41 rabbis in an Isnad chain, because it is going through from Moses until, I think, Judah the Prince. If it's not Judah the Prince, it might be like Yohanan or Hillel. Like, it's one of the big guys, one of the original Mishnah authors, because they go through the whole chain of the Great Assembly time period. So there's this transmission chain of the authenticity of the Mishnah that has 40 different rabbis in it. So it's a longer chain, and if you believe it's true, this is the most perfect Isnad chain in any of the religions, and it happens to be by the Jews, not the Muslims.
Yeah, Muslims, show us your longest Isnad chain. Your weak little, oh, we got 7. Ha! We laugh in your face. Rabbi, you're a joke to the rabbis.
Yeah. So the similarities between the writing is also pretty striking, especially if you're reading it in the Aramaic and the Hebrew. Some of the Hebrew passages, like the God, like Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, the Allah Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahman, that phrase is directly found in the Talmud dozens of times, if not hundreds of times. Again, I've only read a small percentage of the actual Talmud. I don't know the how often these things are actually happening in it. I just know it happens in it at least 2 or 3 times from what I found so far. But I haven't done a systematic overview, which is why I want someone like Ash, who has spent way more time studying it, to come in and weigh in on how big of a problem this actually is. But we have,
I mean, you and Ash, I think he's been doing it, definitely been doing it longer than you, because you've been, you said you've been doing this for a couple months now. But if you guys wanted to collab on a live stream, if there's something that you're both interested in and want to cover, you guys can both jump on.
all right, yeah. I've been kind of hyper fixated on this for a couple weeks now. So I got started with the whole Talmud thing because I was debunking Rabbinic Judaism and Tovia Singer. So my Isaiah 53 video I made a couple weeks ago, it's an hour long, and it goes through the Greek and the Aramaic and the Hebrew of Isaiah, and it shows that the Jews of the Second Temple time period believed that Isaiah 53 was about the Messiah. So I was studying Talmud for that, then I noticed, hey, this sounds like the Quran. that's weird. And I started reading more of it. And I was like, oh, this is literally just the Quran, because I'm reading through the whole Quran for the Islamic Dilemma project. So I've read like Surah 5, Surah 9, Surah 33, Surah 2, 3, 4, 5. Like I read all of those a couple of times, but I didn't read all of the Quran. So I didn't realize how similar it was until this year. For since March until now, I read all of the Quran. Now I'm reading the Talmud for the first time in depth. And I'm like, oh, this is the same book. And that's how this idea came about.
Oh, also, for things like that, like if you do an in-depth response to someone like Tovia Singer, I like the idea of getting double or triple duty out of working on something. So you do something, you make a video out of it, but then you do a live stream about it, but then you jump on someone else's live stream about it and then go through the same thing. And that way, reaching different people with it. But it's just Rabbi Tovia Singer, lots of Muslims like to go to him because he tries to ally with anyone. His main concern, and he seems to be the minority here because most Jews I encounter are like, hey, yeah, Christians, awesome. Go to church, man. I mean, Ben Shapiro, Christians, go to church. Yes, become active. They like the idea of people, even if it's from even if it's a different tradition. They like the idea of people becoming more serious and devout in their religion, unless it's Islam, which specifically calls for the eventual extermination of Jews. But you have Tovia Singer, who's more concerned about Christians evangelizing Jews, and so he sides with Muslims to respond to Christians and so on. So anyway, so I just hear from so many Muslims, oh, why don't you respond to Rabbi Tovia Singer? And it's so dumb. It's like, hey, does he believe Jesus the Messiah, like your Quran says? Does he believe Jesus is born of a virgin, like your Quran says, and so on? But anyway, so since he comes up so often, yeah, if you ever want to cover something on him, let me know. Jump on.
Yeah, of course.
And I have to say anything on Isaiah 53 can't do that enough. Needs to be revisited multiple times per year.
Right. Yeah. So I did a comparison between all the original languages and shown that so like in the Targum Jonathan, the word Messiah is inserted into the text. So you can't get more explicitly messianic than that. Like the Jews of Second Temple Judaism, like, hey, there's at least 4 times where the word Messiah is inserted into Targum Jonathan from Isaiah 41 to 53. So all the servant songs have the word Messiah inserted in Aramaic. You can't really get more explicit than that. So, yeah, go watch that video if you're interested. I think I did a pretty good job on it. It was one of my longest notes I've ever made. It was 100 pages. So, yeah. Anyway, the magic letters. So anyone who's read the Quran knows that like 60 to 70% of the surahs start with these magic letters. It's so common and it's so dumb, and some of them are fun. Sad. The letters that they chose to spell out there literally means like depressing. So like sometimes the letters make words. And one of the surahs, the magic letters at the beginning spells out like depressing.
Nice.
Pretty funny to go through. But here we have, I was just reading Pescayam randomly, looking for something else. And then I noticed this top line. And I was like, wait, what's happening? Because I saw all the letters. And I was like, oh, this are just letters of Hebrew. This is how you spell letters of Hebrew. So Dalet is the D sound. Yod is the inside of the name of God. It's the first letter of the name of God. Aleph is the first letter of the alphabet. So you have these letters of the alphabet, and it's being used as a mnemonic device to understand the Talmud. So then I just searched one letter, and I found dozens of these just in Pescayam. And then I searched in Sanhedrin, and I found even more of them. So this is not all of them. This happens a lot. I don't know how much, because I found this, I freaked out, and I giggled. And then I put it on the note that I moved on with my life because I had too many things to put onto notes. But here might be the origin, I think it is the origin of the random letters at the beginning of surahs, is that it is supposed to be a mnemonic device to understand the passage of it. if it is that, which I think there are some tafsir that speculate that that is the case, if it is the case, it's from the Talmud. And then there's also the idea that the Syriac Christians, they use the mnemonic devices to identify psalms. So it might be copying the Syriac Christians' writing style. Well, whether it's copying the Syriac Christians or the Talmud, it's still copying people, and it's not a miracle of the Quran.
Yeah,
you also have.
But by the way, that's something that's good for a separate little standalone video, especially those little passages where it gives three of the letters, and if you can actually explain, if you can actually show that that's sort of some sort of mnemonic device or something like that, because I mean, you have different explanations in Islam, but it's actually very difficult to put forward an actual definition, because the Christians of Najran brought this up to Muhammad, and they're like, and you have people who went, but let me put it this way. Surah 3 verse 7 says that there are unclear parts of the Quran, but the commentators say that these three letters at the beginning of surahs is among the unclear parts. You don't know what this means. So it's kind of hard to come along later and say, here's what that is. Like, what do you mean? They didn't know back then. They didn't know what this is for. And so, anyway, it's interesting if you actually have an explanation, and it's interesting if in the Talmud, it actually makes sense and it works and it serves a purpose, and Islam copies it, but doesn't know what it's about. And it's just, oh, I hear these guys saying three letters. Let me say three letters. Ha ha ha. But it doesn't make any sense. It's like, because we could make a list of things that make sense in other sources, but make no sense in the Quran. It's just like Jesus being the word of God in the Bible. We know what that means. Why is Jesus the word of Allah in the Quran? It makes no sense. And it's just, they took something, they heard it, and had no clue what it means.
Yeah. Which there is a lot of stuff about the Messiah in the Talmud. I think some of the messianic stuff is from the Talmud that he's using. Including there is a lot of eschatology in the Talmud, because there were a lot of doomsday rabbis. So there's a lot of the material of the Talmud that is focused on the end times and what's going to happen during the end times, which I have a bunch of slides on in the future. But it is interesting how similar it is to Islam. Yeah, it makes more sense in the Jewish sources than it does in the Quran, which is why I think the Quran is supposed to be a paraphrase that's confirming what came before it, but is like assuming you have some level of familiarity with the original material. But there's a lot of times with like the three letters that he copies it and has no idea what it's used for. He's doing it to confirm his scripture with the previous scripture. So he does things for legitimacy that line up with the Talmud, not the Bible, but with the Talmud, because he thinks the Talmud is the Bible. And I have at least 3 or 4 of them in these slides that do that. But here's one of the first ones. It's something that Muslims don't understand, because they didn't read the Talmud. So they didn't get this type of language. And Sanhedrin is one of the ones that's quoted from the most in the Quran. So the fact that it's happening in the Quran with 2 different ones that are 4 lengths is quite interesting. And there's a bunch of ones in Sanhedrin that are happening. It's not just this one.
So someone said doomsday rabbi sounds metal. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of there are some. I have some statements that are quite shocking.
That's what Ash should have named his channel. Anyway, sorry about
that. Have you ever seen Ash's song where he pooped his pants?
I don't think so.
It's his oldest video on his channel, and he sang a country song that was a parody, and it's just him pooping himself. It's quite funny. But if he had made some metal music, that would have been great.
Yeah. Sounds like something. Say, country music used to be about whiskey drinking and butt kicking and being depressed and getting drunk and stuff like that. So that would actually fit into like old school country.
Yeah.
Now it's all like bordering on like Taylor Swift nonsense.
Yeah. So let's debunk the pillars of Islam. So all 5 pillars of Islam, the Shahada is the weakest. The other 4 are very explicit. And there's actually one passage in the Talmud that lists all 4 of those. So the Shahada is probably the weakest. You have some loose cognate with the Shema Israel, which is the Shema they would quote all the time, and it was their statement of faith. So they would recite this daily, twice daily, and it is the Shema Israel Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. But the Echad, by the time of the Arabic, like the time of the 500, 600, 700s, they shortened it to Ahad in the Aramaic. So this Echad here doesn't have the strong ch from the shet or the chet. It is instead more of a soft H. And in Arabic, that's ahad for oneness. So this is very similar to the one and only for the Yichid of Allah. Like that might be where Yahweh is one, not Yahweh. Allah is one, and there he has a messenger, and you have to follow him and all that stuff. Like the idea of the Shahada might come from a skewed version of the Shema Israel, and they're supposed to report it or recite it daily as a blessing, and the ones who do go to heaven. So blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctified us with his mitzvah and commanded us to engage in matters of Torah. So whenever you do this blessing that you recite, you're supposed to be reciting the Shema, and you're supposed to be reciting this blessing onto God. And if you notice, it is blessed are you. This is Baruch, which might be like the Subhanallah. Lord our God, this is Rabbi. So this is one of the titles of Allah. And then King of the universe. That's a very
Malik.
common type phrase. Yeah, Malik. So that comes from Hebrew. It's actually the same word. It's Malik. It's Malik in Hebrew, and it's Malik in Arabic. And it's Rabbi or Adonai in the actual one, but Rab is for Lord. And then if you want to say, some people make the claim that Aramaic changed Elohim into Eleha. If you want to make that claim, then that might be where Allah comes from. If it is, then this is Rab Allah. So blessed are you, Subhanallah, Rab Allah, Malach of the universe, or King of the worlds. And that's one of the most common blessings of God in the Talmud. So this is very, very Talmudic, and it's also very Islamic. And I just mentioned the Allah connection. Why is he not named Yahweh? Why is the name of Yah not ever used in Islam? It's because the Jews had stopped using it by that time period. And a lot of their manuscripts had changed in the Aramaic, where if you read Sephara, a lot of the time you get like a yod and a vav together to signify the name of God, but it's they basically gloss over it, or they replace it with Adonai or some other word. They're not actually speaking the name of God. So why does Allah get his name wrong? It's because the Jews weren't saying it, so he didn't know that it existed, which is interesting. You also have the prayers, and this is one of the most striking parallels between the pillars of Islam and the Talmud. So we have 3 daily prayers instituted multiple times in the Talmud in Berchot. You have the prayer in the morning, prayer in the afternoon, and prayer in the evening time. Well, this happens in a bunch of different places. And you also have to pray towards Jerusalem. A blind person who cannot understand the direction has to pray with his heart towards heaven. If you're not blind, you have to figure out where Jerusalem is and pray to it. So they have a Qibla. And then they recite the Shema and then pray. So they have this formulaic prayer that they do 3 times a day when they wake up, at noon, and whenever they go to sleep, which in the Quran is exactly the same. It's different in the Hadith, which might be taken from Zoroastrian, but that's like its own debate. But in the Quran itself, we get in a surah that, Surah 24:58, "O you believe, let your slaves and those of you who have not come to puberty ask permission of you at 3 times, before the dawn prayer, when you lay aside your clothing for the heat of the noon, and after the night prayer. 3 times of privacy for you, it is no sin for them or for you, or other times when someone moves about." You can make a case that there's at least 2 prayers here that line up directly with the Talmud. If you think the laying aside of your clothing for the heat of the afternoon is also a form of prayer, and that they're just praying naked, this would be directly Talmudic. And you do have some prayers that are nude in the Talmud. So you have those connections. You have the 3 daily prayers, and you get a type, like how you pray. So you can pray with your face on the ground. If it's a stone floor, that's not the temple. You're not supposed to be doing it. But whenever you're not on a stone floor, there are rabbis who fall on their face and pray with their arms and legs stretched out, prostrate on the ground. And there's many different ones, like many different rabbis that talk about prostration being part of these daily prayers. So, and then you have other ones that say that it's just bowing on your knees. So whether it's prostration with your face on the ground or bowing on your knees, that is in the Talmud. So you get this. There's a lot of these with prostration and reciting the Shema and reciting the daily prayers.
Yeah, on the
and there's also.
I just wanted to point out for everyone. Yeah, so we bring that up. We bring up the 3 prayers in the Quran usually to basically test if someone is a real Quran only Muslim,
Right.
because you have people who, if you bring up the Hadith, they'll go, "No, I only care about the Quran," and probably 9 times out of 10, they're just saying that because they don't want to defend what's in the Hadith. So you quote the Hadith and they say, "No, I don't. No, you have to bring it from the Quran. That's the only thing I take seriously." When we know the vast majority of Muslims aren't Quran only Muslims. And so one quick test is, how many times a day do you pray? Because according to the Quran, there are 3 prayers. The 5 daily prayers, that comes from the Hadith. And so as soon as they say, "No, we pray 5, it's like, busted. You're not Quran only. But yeah, so
Exactly.
Chris is bringing up a different application of the 3 prayers in the Quran. Namely, that's exactly what you have in the Talmud. And Muslims originally prayed facing Jerusalem. And so kind of lining up here.
Mm-hmm. Yep, the Qibla is the same Qibla, and there's still a Qibla. So you have that. You have, if you pee on yourself, you have to stop, and you can't be within a certain distance of feces or urine. And if you had a seminal emission, you had to stop reading the Torah. You can only read so much of it. You had to stop praying. You had to do ablution.
What if
you had to wash yourself?
What if someone was just
in order
covered
to
in semen?
cleanse
What if
that.
someone was covered in semen? I'm just
You
saying.
would not be allowed to do this.
Okay, so he
There are
definitely
some-
did.
there
He
are
didn't
some
get. He didn't get
rabbis
that.
that say
So that would be
you
some of the
can.
unique material of Islam. Muhammad walked around covered in semen, and Aisha's constantly trying to scratch it off, scrape it off, wash it off, and stuff. And then he's going to the mosque and hugging it out with his bros, even though he's covered in semen. So you're saying we can say definitively that was not something he stole from the Jews.
The Talmud, yeah.
Okay. All right. Good.
But there are some rabbis within there that are like, hey, it's not a problem. He should just finish and then soak himself. Because you also have the you should cover yourself in water. So you should do ablution in the way that the Muslims do ablution. You can also have praying with washing your hands. So you can have invalid prayers depending on your state of purity. So if you haven't done ablution, if you haven't washed yourself yet, and you're in this state, like of feces, or you're doing, like, if you're near it, or if you're covered in semen or urine or any of that stuff, your prayer is an abomination and you must pray again. And anyone who's standing in prayer for other reason and urine is flowing on his knees, he must interrupt his prayer until the urine ceases and then resume praying. And he must return to the beginning of the prayer. So there's lots of different rabbis here saying different things. So it's like, rather rabbi this, Rava said that. So the sages, like, this is the debate section. So this is 4 or 5 different opinions of different rabbis on what it means to be impure, to be in a state of impurity, and to still pray the daily prayer. Whether or not you need to repeat it, whether or not you need to stop and cleanse yourself, or if you can just do it and keep going. So I think Muhammad just chose the one he liked and went with it. But you have, if you relieve yourself, you wash. Anyone who relieves himself washes his hands, dons phylacteries, recites Shema, and prays. The verse ascribes credit to him as if he built an altar and offered a sacrifice upon it. I haven't gone a deep dive into the Kaaba yet. I probably should. I don't have any slides on the Kaaba in this. I don't know if the Kaaba has any significance within Judaism. The only thing I have is that Ishmael and Abraham may have been the ones who built the altar in between Bethel and Ai. So because there is the temple that Abraham built, you might be able to say that Abraham built a Kaaba. It just wouldn't be in Hijaz, it would be in Jerusalem, or north of Jerusalem. But I don't have any slides on that. That's mostly speculation, and I need to do way more research on that before we have anything concrete for the Kaaba. But we have one who has no water to which wash his hands. It is sufficient that he wipes his hands with earth, a rock, or a sliver of wood. There's Tanayum. So if you don't have water and you're on a journey, you have to clean your hands with clean dirt. So, oh, you believe, this is Surah 4, do not draw near to prayer except or when you are drunk until you know what you are saying, nor when you are unclean, if you haven't done ablution, except when you are traveling on the road until you have bathed, ablution, and if you are ill or on a journey, or if one of you has just relieved himself or had come in contact with a woman, had intercourse, and you find no water, then go clean high ground and go find clean high ground and rub your faces and your hands. Indeed, Allah is benign, forgiving. So here we have the requirements for ritualized cleansing before prayer. And if you can't find water in order to do the cleansing, you have to clean yourself on clean dirt. And here we have you clean yourself on clean dirt. And you have all of the other stuff with what you do for the ritualized, when you do it. And every single thing in this list is in the Talmud for when you need to clean yourself to pray. So this is just word for word identical to the content of the Talmud, including the Tayyim with the cleaning on the ground. So this gets into the Zabiba. And we have...
Zabiba, I got a big Zabiba. I should have had the song ready. Sorry about that.
So we have lots of places that talk about the phylacteries. I just brought one here. Whoever dons the phylactery, you're supposed to do this whenever you pray, if you're a good rabbi. Well, you have some statues of people praying with the tabiba on, the tefillin on, and he's bowing down and prostrating in the way that Muslims do. So if you're donning the phylacteries on the arm and the head, you must recite the blessing again until you have the phylacteries. The rebellious Jews who have sinned with their bodies, who are they? Rav said this is referring to the skull that did not ever don phylacteries. If Muhammad misconstrued phylacteries for a bump, then this would be the Zabiba. And we see in Surah 48, the mark of them is on their foreheads from the traces of prostration. That is their comparison in the Torah. Again, if the Torah is the Mishnah and phylacteries are required and you're supposed to be bowing down, then this is the mark of prostration on your forehead. And he's saying that the Muslims, the faithful followers of Allah, do this. He might have just misinterpreted what they're doing.
Everyone getting this? Everyone getting that? This would be a good little separate video here, man. Everyone getting this? You have Muhammad hearing that, according to the Jews, it's in their sources that you have to have this thing on your head while praying. And then it ends up, the mark of them is on their foreheads from the traces of prostration. They end up thinking it's this thing you get from banging your head on the ground all the time, and you get this big everlasting bruise on your head.
Yeah. And it's in the Torah. Importantly, it's in the Torah. So whenever we look in the Torah, we don't see anything. When we look in the Talmud, we see a lot of stuff about phylacteries on the forehead. So this also gets back into ablution. A person does not enter the temple courtyard for the temple service, even if he is pure, until he immerses. 5 immersions and 10 sanctifications the high priest immerses and sanctifies his hands and feet. Specifically the hands and feet. What are you supposed to do? According to Surah 4, you are to clean your hands and your feet, or your faces and your hands. There is another section, I think it's in the Sunnah, where it talks about the feet as well. But you have ablution where you have to do this ritualized from your head to your feet, washing and cleaning in a specific order and a specific manner. You do this on Yom Kippur. So you do this type of immersion, this type of cleaning on the High Holy Day when you're preparing for the festival. And likewise, I think you do this for Ramadan. I'm not too sure about that. My Ramadan knowledge is very basic and minimal, other than the fact that Allah hates those who do it, because it's a lot of waste, and Allah hates the wasteful, which is also from the Talmud. But I'm going to make a video on Ramadan during Ramadan on Allah hates all Muslims who do Ramadan,
Beast.
which I think is going to be quite fun. So
And
importantly,
when you do it, make
but
sure that you mention they all get morbidly obese while they're fasting for Ramadan.
yeah, so I was going to go through the statistics of the diabetes because they get the same type of diabetes that pregnant women get, which is funny.
So you're
you
saying
have
Muslim men during Ramadan are pregnant women?
pretty much.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
We agree.
So uh, Jesus didn't actually approve of this. So we get in I think multiple gospels that Jesus says it's not what goes into the body that corrupts it, but it's what comes out of the body that corrupts it. It's the heart that's corruption. Jesus is denying the rabbinic tradition of washing the hands and feet before meals and before praying. So this is a tradition that Jesus doesn't approve of. If Jesus is affirming the Torah from the Islamic point of view, if Jesus is affirming the previous revelations, why is it that he is denying this thing that both the rabbis and Islam agrees on? It's interesting. So there's a contradiction within what Jesus approves of. So why is it, if this was abrogated, why did Allah bring it back? Why is it not progressive but regressive revelation?
Yeah, so guys, you getting that? Even according to the Quran, Jesus changed some things about what's lawful, and so you'd have to say, okay, so if you think this was originally authoritative in for Jews, then you'd have to say, well, Jesus changed it, but then why would Allah bring it back?
Right. Also, the Arabic and the Hebrew is the same word for this. So, the pure water. Very interesting. There's a lot of cognates because Arabic and Hebrew is the same, pretty much the same language in a lot of ways. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's new because Arabic has way more words than Hebrew. But of the base words that Hebrew has, there's usually a cognate within Islam. And most of the cognates that have religious connotation are used within Islam. It's not changed. So one example of that is zakats, which comes from zedekah.
So, sorry, 1 second. We did have Robin Yahud said, didn't Muhammad get his water? And I know this went through a bunch of people's heads. Also, that's what I thought of. But Robin Yahud said, didn't Muhammad get his water from a dirty well? And when questioned, said, water is water, implying purity. Yeah, you're talking about the well of Buddha, where they needed to do their ablutions. And they said, hey, the only well we got here is the well of Buddha, but it's used as like a garbage dump. And they throw their dead animals, their toilet pots and used menstrual cloths in this well. And he said, verily, all water is made impure by nothing. So yes, rub it all over your faces and hands. So that was considered pure water. So it still meets the requirements because Muhammad said it's pure.
Right. Someone in the chat mentioned jizya. Jizya is actually original to Muhammad as far as I can tell. I have not found anything that's even remotely close to jizya. So him getting multiple wives, child marriage, and jizya seem to be the original revelations of Islam.
Yeah. So Muhammad was the master of jizya.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not in the al-Zut sense, but
well,
yeah.
Both senses.
I guess true. Okay. So we have zakat, which comes from the same word in Hebrew. It's slightly altered, but it's the same Semitic root. And we have in Bava Barta that a person should never prevent himself from giving at least 1/3 of a shekel a year in charity. Zakat, if I remember correctly, is 2.5% of your annual income. Mm-hmm. So this is a smaller amount. It's not a massive amount. And we also have rabbis that say that it should not be more than 1/5. So it can't be more than 20%. And so there's this limitation on how much it actually should be. And you might have picked up this more of the Bava section because this is more quoted from in the Quran, which we also have later on in the same section, that zakat's charity is equivalent to all other law combined. So there is a high emphasis in the Quran of charity. Here we have in the section that is defining a small charity that is required, you also have that charity is the highest mitzvah, the highest uh, law that all Jews are required to do. And there's a sense that also those who don't do it are going to hell, which we'll get to in the Judgment Day section. We also have Som, which again, cognate, and this is one of the more debated ones, but I do think it is valid because of a later section. But we have a lot of writing in Yoma about the prohibitions on eating during Yom Kippur and some of the other festivals, because you're supposed to fast for Yom Kippur. You fast for 25 hours. So you have a 25-hour fast where you don't eat, and I think some of them don't drink water either. So you have the same type of fast you do during Ramadan done by the Jews on their high holy day. So on the holiest month of the year, Tishri, you have Yom Kippur, you also have the Feast of Trumpets, and you have the Feast of Tabernacles. So 3 of the holiest days of Judaism is in 1 month, and during that month, you have a fast where you're not supposed to eat food for a certain amount of time until the sun sets. And it's the same word. So, yeah. You also have the Hajj, which comes from Chag. And the G's and J's are pretty much the same between Hebrew and Arabic. There are no J sounds in Hebrew, so the G's become J. So like we see that with Jehannam versus Gehenna, or Jenna versus Gan or Ghana. That's the real big difference there. So this would be Hajj if the G made the proper sound for the direct equivalent. So this is still a cognate, just the letters sound different for some of the translations from Hebrew to Arabic. So you have 3 festivals that are required for pilgrimage, and they are Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot. One of which I already mentioned, which is the Feast of Tabernacles, which comes after Yom Kippur. So you have that where you dwell in tents. And actually, I did an interview on Yom Kippur this year of a Christian who's Torah observant, and he makes his own tents, and it's really fun. Anyone who's interested in some of the Jewishness of our faith and what you can do with the festivals as a Christian, I would recommend to watch that live stream. And I have like a menorah and the Yom Kippur honey and all that stuff in the thumbnail. If you just see that, it says Yom Kippur on it. That was really fun. He's a really cool guy. He's a part of Acts 17, the server and everything else.
So he's based.
So we have a person. He's based. He's very based. He knows Giant DOC. That's how he got connected to mine. He watched the Rebecca's 3 video, thought it was amazing, and then reached out to me, and we had like a 6-hour conversation. So very based. But the Hajj is essentially required. You have to do it. You have that a person's sentence is torn up. This is again in Rosh Hashanah. So this is during the judgment section, which we'll read. We'll read all of 16b and 17a, just straight through, and you'll see how much of Judgment Day comes from the Talmud. But we have a person's sentence is torn up on account of 4 types of actions: zakats, a crying out in prayer, selah, a change of one's deeds for the better, repentance, and also a change of one's place of residence cancels an evil judgment. You also have the change of one's name for like Jacob becoming Israel. They use that as you are a more holy person after the fact. But here you have 3 of the 5 pillars and one of the most central tenets of their soteriology, with is repentance. So you have repentance and 3 of the pillars in 1 paragraph of the Talmud inside of their discussion of Judgment Day, that the entire section is relevant to Islam. So you can make a case for all 5 pillars being borrowed from the Jews. You also have all these cognates. So like everything I have on the screen right now is used exactly the same way within the Talmud. And a lot of them are directly equivalent. So like Rab Alamen, as I mentioned earlier, Lord of the Worlds, is Adon Ha-Olim. So Alamen versus Olim. The Quran itself, the word Quran comes from the same Semitic root of Merka or Kire. Kire is to read, Merka is to recite. So either it's Quran Kire or Quran Merka, but Merka being the same roots as Quran. And in Arabic, you have a word called irka, which is essentially the cognate of Merka, which is a little bit more direct, but it's essentially means the same thing. You have the shaitans, you have Jahannam from Gi Hinnom, which is the valley of Hinnom. You have, so like all this stuff is exactly the same. It's not a problem theoretically that there's cognates because they're sister languages. The problem is they're used in ways that only line up with the Talmud and don't line up with the Torah, or is the opposite of the Torah but does line up with Islam. So, fun stuff. You also have the masjid coming from masjid, and in Ge'ez, it's masjid. So you have the idea of a place of worship from two different sects of Jews. You have Rabbinic Jews and you have Yemeni Jews, both using this term for referring to the synagogue in Aramaic. So, a lot of borrowed theology. Here comes one of the big ones. Shirk,
one second.
the unforgivable sin.
Yeah, just wanted to point out, since you've already done a lot of the work putting this together, talking about regular videos, but titling it something like, "Did Muhammad steal the 5 pillars from Jews or from the Talmud," or something like that? Those are things that would do well. And so you got your work cut out for you in terms of how many videos, but yeah, I would, I don't know how much time you have to work on this stuff, but I'd be aiming for about 2 videos per week, at least one. You've got all the research right in your face. So,
right. Yeah.
Yep. Those are videos that would do well.
I make a video every Friday. I currently have a production schedule scheduled for June because I'm a little crazy. But I could always, delay a lot of those videos, but I have a lot of videos planned because I keep getting requests to cover things. And there's just things that are interesting that people, generally speaking, don't know about. But I could replace all my historical Muhammad videos with the Talmudic dilemma stuff.
Or kind of go back and forth. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Right now I'm doing an Islamic video and a Christian video every other week. So I do Friday upload. I stream on Christianity on Monday and then on Islam on Wednesday. And then the Friday flip-flops between the two. So on Wednesday, I will be covering this type of material in depth, like going through the actual passages, reading all of it, showing how it's identical to it rather than just skimming it. And then I'll make videos doing deep dives and going through the actual languages themselves and how they relate and how they actually rhyme. Because like the Shahada, or not the Shahada, the Surah 1 al-Fatiha, or Fatiha, the opening, it matches and mirrors the type of rhyming scheme you see in the Psalms in Hebrew. So the writing system itself, not only is all of this theology copied, the type of writing itself is also copied from some of the prayers within the Talmud and the Psalms themselves. And we know that he knows about the Psalms because of the Zubir of David. So a lot of stuff to go through, man. There's so much.
Yo, on this, because I know you have hours of content. I would suggest we go for about 10 more minutes on these points. So whatever you're going to cover for about the next 10 minutes, and then we'll revisit the topic after you've put out a couple of videos, and then go back into your presentation to continue, but also send people to your videos and tell them to share them. Especially if some of the material you're going through in the presentation, you're like, oh, and I got a short 10-minute video on that, and then everyone can go and share it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So if we're just going to do 10 minutes, I do want to go through the Judgment Day passage, but we can talk about Shirk and then go through Judgment Day?
That works. Yeah.
We can call it,
Shirk and Judgment Day.
Okay. So Shirk is the exact same word. So here it is right here in the middle. This is shotev. And this literally means partner. It's used a lot of business partners, but we have specifically
because they're
that
Jews.
The heretics, because they're Jews, the heretics will not be able to say that the Holy One, blessed be he, had a partner in the acts of creation. So anyone who does shetef, who does shirk, the name of heaven and something else, a euphemism for an idol, is they're uprooted from the world. That means that they are destroyed. So the idea of shirk is a sin that's so bad that everyone who does it goes to hell, which is interesting. So we have that. We have kafir also comes from it. Rahman, Kurdan, going through the jinn. Peeing on yourself is one of the things that God hates. So like the torture of the grave for peeing on yourself. This abrogation, seven heavens, Gabriel, all that stuff.
I mean, seriously, no matter how many times, it's how many times I see the passages, it's still amazing to me that a little bit of pee-pee on you, really, 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 really bad, semen all over you, no problem whatsoever in Islam.
Yeah,
I would seriously, like,
one who holds his penis and urinates.
I would actually like to, I would actually like to ask Muslim scholars, but they'll think I'm being mean. Whereas I am legitimately interested in that, right? Like, why a little bit of pee-pee so bad? So much so that like a massive portion of the punishment of the grave is over that. But dude can walk around covered in semen, no problem whatsoever. And again, they wouldn't want to answer because they'll think I'm being mean. But I'm completely serious about that. I would love to hear their explanation.
Right. And why is it that the Talmud also says that God hates those who pee that way? It's conspicuous, to say nothing else about it. So let's go through the Avodah Zarah passage, because this is so striking. It's amazing. So they fashioned graven images in all of their vanity, and their delectable things shall not profit. It shall not profit them. This idea of their idols, their pagan worship not being profiting or hurting comes from the Talmud, and their own witnesses see not nor know. This demonstrates that the objects of idol worship will serve as witnesses against the worshippers, which is all over the Quran. It's all the Quran passages on it. So the idols will come alive and witness against the idolaters, the heretics, on the day of judgment. So continuing on in that same passage, we have, in the future, the Holy One, blessed be He. Again, the Quran just throws in these random blessings of God. I said the Quran, the Talmud throws in these random blessings of God, and it randomly jumps from topic to topic. So like the cow, the structure of the cow matches the Talmud one for one for its random jumping around and its random blessings and the random titles and names. And a lot of those are also identical. So you have the structure being the same. Anyone who engaged in its study of the Torah. Oh, I guess I skipped. In the future, the Holy One, blessed be He, will bring a Torah scroll and place it in his lap and say, anyone who engaged in its study should come and take his reward. If you read the Quran, you're saved. If you take the practice of the Quran, you're saved. Immediately, the nations of the world will gather together and come intermingled with each other. As it is stated, all the nations will gather together and let the peoples be assembled. The Quran says, if He had wanted, He could have made you all one people. The Holy One, blessed be He, will say to them, do not enter before me intermingled. Rather, let each and every nation enter with their scholars to give a defense on account of them. And the term Loim means nothing other than kingdom, as it is stated. The Gemara asks, but is it possible for there to be intermingling before the Holy One, blessed be He, that it should be necessary for each nation to stand and be addressed separately? Rather, the nations are instructed to stand separately so that they will not become intermingled with each other, in order that they will each hear what He says to them. There's going to be individual judgments between the people groups based on what the scholars say and how they followed the book given to them. But the nations will say before God, Master of the universe, one of the titles in the Quran, did you give us the Torah and we did not accept it? They're doing this rhetorical question of, you didn't give us a book. You didn't give us an instruction. Since we never received the Torah, why are we being judged for not fulfilling its law? The Gemara asks, how can one say that they were never offered the Torah, but isn't it written in the description of giving the Torah? And he said, the Lord came from Sinai and rose from Seir onto them. And it is written, God came from Teman and the Holy One from Mount Paran.
See,
and the sages asked, what? Muhammad. Actually, it does talk about the Arabs with Paran right here, the Ishmaelites. So what did God require in Seir and what did He require in Paran? The Torah was not given in those locations. And Rabbi Yohanan says, this teaches that the Holy One, blessed be He, took the Torah around to every nation and those who speak every language, such as the Edomites in Seir and the Ishmaelites in Paran, but they did not accept it until He came to the Jewish people and they accepted it. In the Quran, you get all the time that all people groups were given a book in their language from God in order to be responsible for their failings against the law. And none of them accept it except the Jews. If the other nations all rejected the Torah, how can they excuse themselves by claiming that it was never offered to them? This is one of the defenses the pagans give inside of the Quran. Rather, this is what they say: did we not accept the Torah and not fulfill its mitzvah? And it says, you are a refutation of your own claim. Then they respond, Master of the universe, did you overturn the mountain above us like a basin, and we did still not accept the Torah as you did for the Jewish people? This gets back into the cow, where in the beginning of the cow, God lifts a mountain over the Jews whenever he makes their covenant with them. That's in two different places in Bereshit Rabbah. It's also in here in Avodah Zarah. So you get the story of the mountain hovering over Israel as a death threat. And then the people complain, like, if you were to do that, of course they would accept the Torah. You threatened them with death. So the heretics are actually saying that that was evil of God to hold a mountain over them, which is interesting. I skipped that passage for this bit. Instead, the Holy One, blessed be he, says to the nations, let the witnesses come from among you and testify that the Jewish people fulfilled the Torah in its entirety. Let Nimrod come and testify about Abraham, that he did not engage in idol worship. Let Laban come and testify about Jacob and that he's not suspected with regard to robbery. Let the wife of Potiphar come and testify about Joseph, that he is not suspected with regard to the sin of adultery. So it gives this random list of this prophet, this prophet, this prophet, in the same way that the Quran does, in order to demonstrate authenticity of a specific point of view. The Gentiles then say before him, Master of the universe, give us the Torah afresh, and we will perform its mitzvah. On the judgment day in Islam, the heretics were like, hey, if you were to give us the Quran, we would follow it. So the Blessed One says to this response, fools of the world, do you think you can request this? One who takes pains on Shabbat Eve will eat on Shabbat, but one who did not take pains on Shabbat Eve, from where will he eat on Shabbat? The opportunity for performing mitzvah has already passed and is now too late to ask to perform them. But even so, I have an easy mitzvah to fulfill, and its name is Sukkah. Go and perform it. The Gemara asks, how can you say that it's possible to perform mitzvah after the end of the world? And then he goes through a little bit. This verse teaches that today is this world. It is the time to do the mitzvah, the law. But tomorrow, in the world to come, which is a very common phrase in the Talmud, the life of the hereafter and the world to come are very Talmudic phrases, and it happens all over the Quran. In the world to come, it is not the time to do the law. Furthermore, today is the time to do them, but today is not the time to receive one's reward, which is granted in the world to come. The Gemara explains, but even so, God gave the nations an opportunity to perform a mitzvah, as the Holy One, blessed be he, does not deal tyrannically with his creations, but wants them to feel that they have been judged fairly. All over the Quran, it says that he is not a tyrant. The Gemara asks, how does God call the mitzvah of Sukkah an easy mitzvah to fulfill? Because performing the mitzvah involves no monetary loss. Immediately, each and every Gentile will take materials and go and construct a sukkah on top of his roof, and the Holy One, blessed be he, will set upon them the heat of the sun in the season of Tammuz, the summertime, and each and every one of them who is sitting in his sukkah will be unable to stand the heat, and he will kick his sukkah and leave.
Yeah, kick his sukkah.
And then well, that is related to the test for those of the Fatara. They have to go into the fire willingly. They have to go into the heat willingly and endure it. And if they are, they're going to be allowed into everlasting life, which in the Talmud, everlasting life is the Garden of Eden. So you get that. But didn't you say that the Holy One, blessed be he, does not deal tyrannically with his creations? The Gemara answers, this is not considered dealing with tyrannically with the Gentiles, because for the Jewish people as well, there are times when the season of Tammuz extends until the festival of Sukkot. In such years, the strike in Sukkah causes them to suffer. So it's saying that it's not unfair because the Jews also experience this type of punishment, and they bear it faithfully. And immediately, the Holy One, blessed be he, sits and makes sport of the Gentiles, and he laughs at them. So this is God being vindictive and mean towards the heretics, the pagans, and the mushriks. So then there's no making sport for the Holy One, blessed be he, but on that day alone. So this is when God removes his mercy and is utterly tormenting the heretics. And then inside of this section, you also have the resurrection. All the Jewish people, even the sinners, those who are liable to be executed with the court-imposed death penalty, have a share in the world to come. So the Jews, all Jews, are saved and guaranteed salvation, even if they sinned in a way that causes the death penalty. So even if they have a mountains of sins against them, God is going to make it to where they are saved. Sounds very Islamic. And these are the exceptions, the people who have no share in the world to come. So they have this list of people. There is the one who says that there is no resurrection of the dead derived from the Torah. So if you say that there is no resurrection of the dead, you're going to hell. If you say that the Torah did not originate from heaven, which is interesting because there's a similar phrase in Hebrew that they use as a positive, which is Torah lo bi shemim. The Torah is not in heaven, it's on earth. So you have to wrestle with it, which is why the rabbis do the halakha. But here we have, if you deny that the Torah had originated from heaven, that there's this like heavenly tablet idea, then you're going to hell. If you're an Epicurean, you go to hell. And if you make fun of the scholars, you go to, if you make fun of the leaders, you go to hell. And also included in the exceptions are those who reads external literature and who whispers invocations over a wound and says an invocation over the healing. So if you're an idolater, or if you study the Greeks, you go to hell. And then you also have that God created them from a sperm drop and he revives them. So there's a lot of stuff on resurrection and ex nihilo creation. And the books that are judged on Judgment Day, where you have two angels on your shoulders that are recording all the deeds that you're doing, that's in the Talmud. And you get the holy good people being entered into heaven, the holy evil people going into Gehenna, sealed for death, and the middling people are going to be tested on Yom Kippur by those deeds. Then they're going to be cleansed by the fire in order to achieve atonement for sins. There are some Islamic ideas that everyone goes to hell for a little bit, they get cleansed of their unrighteousness, then they get to enjoy the garden. So you have the angels writing the books inside of the Talmud, and everything being written inside of the book. All actions that are done, whether they are substantive or not, everything is written inside the book of God by the angels. And you have the temporary hellfire punishment with the 12-month punishment here. Then we say, it has in Surah 2 that the Jews say the fire will not touch us except for a certain number of days. So it's accusing the Jews of something that you don't find in the Bible, but you do find in the Talmud. And this is one of the big ones that I think is just, it's insane. So then as for them whose scales are heavy, he will live a pleasant life. But as for him whose scales are light, his mother will be hawi, will be like childless. She'll be sad. Why? Because of the raging fire. So we have this like broken Hebrew that mirrors some of the broken Arabic within the Quran. But in the Quran, we have that the scale is what is you're judged by. If your good works and your bad works are judged, if your good works are heavier than your bad works, you are entered into heaven. If it's the opposite, you go to hell. Well, interestingly, you have this idea in Surah 39 that Allah will remit from them the worst of what they did and pay them reward the best of what they used to do. This is directly from Rosh Hashanah 17a. Bet Hillel says, who is he and is abundant in kindness, tilts the scales in favor of kindness, so that the middling people will not have to pass through Gehenna. Will I bring the third part through the fire? And it's implying that there isn't a third group which is sent to Gehenna temporarily. They answer no, rather, can the verse be referring to the rebellious Jews who sinned with their bodies, who did some form of shirk or idolatry or adultery? But didn't you say that they have no ratification? There is no ability to be like plead your case before God, which is from the Quran. And when in addition to having sinned with their bodies, the majority of their actions are sins. But here the verse is referring to people for whom half of their actions are sins and half of their are meritorious deeds. So, however, if their sins and meritorious deeds are equally balanced and they did not sin with their bodies, he who is abundant in kindness tilts the scales in favor of kindness. And the way he does this is by removing some of the bad deeds. So either he pushes down on the side of merits, tipping the scale in their favor, or he pushes down on our iniquities, or he raises he bears our sins, which is interesting, or he overlooks each and every first transgression, and that is a attribute of mercy. And mercy here is Ramin, or of Rahman. So it's one of the names of Allah, and it means the merciful one. And that God forgives the first sin, but if he tips and therefore he tips the scale in favor of the merits. So you have so much of that. And then on the end times, you have their faces be blackened and the Gehenna being the home of the scorners. And you have in Rosh Hashanah, in the same passage, that their faces will be black and sooty like the bottom of a pot, and they are called the people of Gehenna, the Ummah of Gehenna, because this word for people is Ummah in Hebrew. That's Judgment Day. There's a little bit more we can go through with it, but like that's the meat of it. That is the Quran.
Interesting stuff. Well, you've made a pretty weak case that Muhammad was copying anything. Let's see what some people think. They say, yeah, get Chris back on, D Wood. We have, man, I left for an hour and a half or so, and this guy's still roasting Islam. Yeah, I know, kind of Islamophobic here. Get this guy back, and get this ginger guy back. So apparently some people like your stuff, man.
Yeah. There are an extra 100 slides we have not gone to. And some of the stuff I went through, like heaven being the Garden of Eden where there's a bunch of sex endlessly, that's Talmudic. So even the afterlife is Talmudic, like just so much of it. Again, I think it's 80%, and I'm not exaggerating with that figure. I think legitimately it's around 80%.
Yeah, I just want to point out, I mean, this is an important enough topic that you could kind of like make it like your life's mission. You know what I mean? To get this stuff, get this stuff into the hands of people everywhere and to show it. And then after you've gone through all the sources and shown everything, then you put out a book titled How 80% of the Quran was stolen from Judaism. It's a provocative title there, a provocative title. But yeah, sounds like you got material for like 40 or 50 videos already.
Yeah. So
fun stuff.
It's going to be a long series.
All right, let's take these super chats and then we'll share final thoughts. So Chris is a sociopath, huh? I don't know. He smiles a bit too much. Interesting. Would you be open to sharing more about how Christ helped you through that?
My first video on the channel is a testimony video. I copied someone.
Yeah. So guys, yeah, what kind of loser posts a testimony video on YouTube? So yeah, guys, I mentioned earlier that the link to his channel is in the description box, so that after you saw what kind of material he was working on, then you could decide whether to go and subscribe and follow his channel. But now you know. And he pointed out that his first video on his channel, testimony video. So if you had questions about his conversion, there you go. Those verses are in the Quran because it confirms. You kind of broke that down at the beginning. Long live streams with PowerPoint. Is this Mike Winger? No. Mike Winger probably saw us doing it. He's like, "Ooh, I'll do it too, but I'll do it way more boring and nerdy." Is Aleph Lam Mim also supposed to imitate Salah?
Probably not. I don't have any reason to think so. I haven't gone that deep into it, so that would be a topic of research.
It's quite interesting because it's from God. Well,
except it's by people. Mm-hmm. And it contradicts what God wrote.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that Muhammad's getting revelations from God that are copied from people who contradict some of what God says in things that the Quran says are from God. D. Wood, Matt Walsh is on generational anti-Islam run, and it's beautiful. Yeah, I keep hearing that. I haven't been following it, so I haven't been following that. I will check it out. He also posts people who comment on it, maybe join the conversation with some al-Zut stories. Oh, well, if you want al-Zut stories, al-Zut stories you shall have. But yeah, I'll check it out. Where did this guy knows Hebrew? Impressive accent.
Thank you. I'm self-taught. I started a class in college. So I'm an engineer. I'm technically a computer scientist. I do data science for a living. And I was learning Hebrew to study the Torah, and just get deeper into it. And I've sat under some rabbis, but I'm a Christian. I'm not Torah observant. That is observant. So I know a decent bit of Hebrew, and I try my best to pronounce it correctly because I get made fun of all the time by my Arabic friends for pronouncing the Arabic horribly. So I've been trying, been bullied into trying to pronounce it correctly. But thank you. I appreciate the compliment. So far, I made a video series on Hebrew from the Hasidic view, on some more of the Sod interpretations of Genesis and how you can actually use it to show Christ. So like better sheets, for example, you can, using the proto-Sinaitic, you can show maybe a prophecy of Jesus, but it's way more clear with et and how Jews translate et into the word of God and how the word of God is the creator of the universe. So you get a lot of Second Temple Judaism saying Christian beliefs. So Paul and John, like John 1 is a deeply Jewish sentence. In the beginning was God, and was like the word was God, the word was with God, and through the word everything was made. That is Jewish. It's not Christian. It's a Jewish origin. It's from the Targums. It's from Targum Neophiti, which is contemporary to John.
Everything is interesting to this guy. You Muslim? Wait, what? I don't get it. Let's see. Book of Zechariah says, the Messiah will reveal himself to the Jews, and they will realize he was one of them the whole time, and reconciliation. Muslims, this isn't a game. Your salvation is at stake. Are you seriously going to follow Muhammad's example rather than believe Christ the Messiah? Your heart already knows the truth, we pray. It is, my goodness, it is becoming a seriously interesting situation where you sit there and watch videos by Sheikh Asim al-Hakim, and anytime someone questions anything, he'll condemn them for questioning something, and you just have to have the certainty, and it's like, what planet are you? Every argument you guys have ever used has been completely destroyed so much that no one at the Dawa level is even using the arguments anymore, and I can't even figure out what your arguments are anymore. I legitimately don't know. I do not know what case these guys have for thinking that Muhammad is a prophet. It's all been destroyed. I mean, the main argument for why Jews and Christians should believe in Muhammad and the Quran, in the Quran, is that he's affirming our scriptures, which Muslims say he's not doing. And so then you've got all this made up stuff, like the perfect preservation of the Quran and the scientific miracles and stuff. That's all been destroyed. And it's like what does it take? What does it take for you guys to realize? Need to get out of there. That was a super sticker. Thumbs up. Yes. Islam's kryptonite. Reading. That's a good point. Chris, can we get this in paperback? Would buy.
So right now I'm putting out all the material I'm writing, especially on Islam, for free, because I want it to be available to third world countries where Islam has a foothold. So I might. So Chris, I'm helping Chris review and with his Islamic Dilemma book. So I actually have the manuscript of that, and I've been sidetracked by the Talmud, but I need to get through and help him think through the arguments and finalize all of that. But whenever Chris actually goes through the publishing aspect of it, depending on his feedback and how easy it was, I might try to make a paperback version of the Talmudic Dilemma. Right now I have around 40 to 50 pages of this available, and that's not including any of the parallels. So if I include all the parallels from these slides into it, that would easily be over 100 pages. And that could be a book by itself. Whether or not I would publish it, I would still give it out for free. So you could buy it in paperback if you want, but it's going to be out for free.
Ash May says, D. Wood, if you think the Talmud is exhausting to hear about, imagine being 11 years old and getting to it after hours of Torah and Mishnah and Chassidus. Yeah, sounds awesome. So sad I missed that. Now that we have them in the corner, it's perhaps time to start showing them how they really are in the Bible as the enemies of God should open eyes. Can we bring Chris to Talmud debates? What Talmud debates? Are there Talmud debates?
I don't know enough Talmud to do that. Yeah, I don't know enough Talmud to do that. Again, I've only been doing this for 2 months.
Okay.
So everything I just presented and everything I haven't presented?
Let's get it up to 6 months and see what happens.
This is just the start of this research.
Yeah. Islam, thief of Judaism with paganism on top. Muhammad, thief of Jews with pagans on top. Al-Zut. Okay, Islam is thief of Judaism with paganism on top. Muhammad is thief of Jews with pagans on top. Al-Zut. Very Islamophobic. D-Wood, get this guy back on. We'll get him back on unless something goes horribly wrong. What's Chris's YouTube channel name? Peace be upon him. Defending a Lion. Literally in the description box. And behind him, but everything's reversed. Your camera's reversed.
Yeah.
If Malachi 3:6 says, I, the Lord, do not change, how does incarnation, which is in no Bible, this is dumb on multiple levels, which is in no Bible book, make you admit that God changed? Okay. The word incarnation, you're right. The word incarnation isn't there because that's now an English word. You're right. Incarnation is becoming flesh. Specifically says the word became flesh. That's incarnation. If you made it a word now, you would use the word incarnation. So yeah, but at least you'd want to say the concept is there and it's clearly taught. So we use it. We have a word for that, incarnation. As far as Malachi 3:6, that's talking about God's character and faithfulness. So if you quote the part you left out, I, the Lord, do not change. So you, the descendants of Jacob, are not destroyed. Like I'm not changing. I'm still faithful. That's why you're not destroyed. I'm still here. That's why you're not destroyed. If you think that rules out the incarnation, then it would rule out anything, right? Like if God creates something, well, that's a change, right? In the sense you're talking about. So he did change. He went from not creating to creating, and therefore he changed, right? By your definition of changing. If God goes to the garden and walks there, then he wasn't there before. He didn't walk there, but he wasn't walking there before, but now he's walking there. Then he changed, right? If God appears to Abraham, if God appears to Moses in a fire, anything that God is doing that he wasn't doing before, that would be a change in your sense, right? And therefore it's all wrong. It's all incoherent and false, right? So, yeah, better luck next time, buddy.
Also, the exact word fallacy. Just because the word is not there doesn't mean it's not. Like Tawheed is not in the Quran.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the word theology is not in the Bible. So you'd conclude there's no theology in the Bible. There's no theology in the Bible. It's not there. Lumna made a video reacting to Jake, reacting to AP and Tommy trying to get into the Dome of the Rock. Jake was angry because they were lying by saying they were Muslim. Meanwhile, Jake was repeatedly accusing AP of adultery. Yeah, that sounded like... it seemed like they were joking around, like giggling. I mean, Tommy was sitting there giggling and laughing and stuff like this. Come on, let us in. I'm a Muslim and stuff. So, yeah, if you want to. and it's just hilarious to me that, oh, how dare you? It's joking around and trying to get into the mosque there, or the Dome of the Rock, whatever they were trying to get into. It's like, you guys just went up and took the entire place, just like you did with the Kaaba, just like you did with Hagia Sophia. You guys just strong arm people's stuff, and you're fine with that, but you're not okay with Tommy going, I'm a Muslim, mate. I'm a Muslim there. Let me in. Come on. Hypocrisy. Sheer hypocrisy.
I do want to say one thing real quick. What? Someone mentioned Radar Apologetics in the chat. I absolutely want to get in touch with him. I sent him an email as well. So if Ed is here in the chat, I sent you an email. We need to get together and we could really destroy Islam with this stuff, man.
Oh yeah. Radar, Ash, you, lots of, there's everyone watching. Get your minds around this. I've pointed out many times, you go 20 years ago, there was like a handful of us who were like just going after Islam using the beginnings of social media and so on. Now there's a ton of people, but they're still like plenty of room, not just for new people, but for new arguments and bringing in all. There's so much to cover. Even just in the Muslim story, there's so many things. I keep repeating a lot of the same things over and over and over again, just because I'm trying to repeat them until they become common knowledge. But don't think that just because I cover these handful of things over and over and over again, that there's not a ton of other stuff to cover. There's endless material. And so, yeah, it is cool. It is cool that we have a bunch of different directions we're going to be going in. I mean, even on just one thing like the Islamic dilemma, so many different possible versions of the argument, so many different directions to go in. These are good times, guys. These are really, really good times. And last one here, rewatch the video later and see how dumb and hypocritical you are. This is the guy who said the word incarnation is not in the Bible, and in Malachi it says I do not change, so he can't become incarnate. Okay, I'll rewatch it. I'll just rewatch the entire live stream over and over and over again to see how hypocritical I am. Yeah. Sad.
The guy right before that you didn't actually read. He said that he wanted to get in touch with me to do this stuff.
Let's see. This is great, but I'm not looking forward to Candace finding out. Oh, yeah. Also, fellow data scientist and Deliminator would love to connect regarding Quran analysis. Chris, there you go.
Right. So if you're in Acts 17 Apologetics, you can DM me on that. If not, you can email me and I'll invite you to the Discord.
Yep, and Apostate of Allah and I are going to get into the Discord. Hey, Apostate of Allah, if you're still watching, then message me on X, and then we'll figure out a time, and then tell people we're going to go in there and stuff, and then they can give us a crash course on Discord. What are you looking around for in panic mode?
I'm gonna send you that email right now too. I'm sending you an email for the invitation to the Discord.
Okay, well, you can send me an email anytime. Right now, time for any final thoughts to close out the stream.
There are hundreds of these, and this is the tip of the iceberg. I've only been doing this for a week, really. Like the in-depth studying, writing them all out. This is a week's worth of work. And I'm a professional researcher. I literally do medical research for my living. So I have the tools, I have the experience to do research, which is part of the reason why I was so prolific with this writing. But this is just the tip of the iceberg, people. Like, if we can prove that 80 to 90% of Islam, not just the Quran, but like Islamic theology, the Sunnah, the Tafsir, like Islam itself is a Jewish death cult, that was a doomsday death cult, that would make most Muslims Jews, and they hate Jews. So not only would this be a cognitive dissonance thing happening where like, oh, well, my scripture is obviously man-made. That's a big problem that could lead a lot of people against Islam. But also, they don't want to be Jewish. So you have the polemical side of it, and you have just the sheer apologetic side where we could really reach the hearts and minds of people. And, the Islamic dilemma can be more polemical than apologetic, but this is like, you can just say, hey, a lot of this stuff comes from the Jews. Did you know that? And then just read off a couple of the similarities. And not the stories, because it's easily dismissed. The theology similarities. They can't get past that. And then you can compare it to the Targums and to the Hebrew manuscripts and show how it didn't evolve until the rabbis. And then the rabbis added the same thing that the Quran adds. So it's not coming from the previous scriptures, it's coming from the rabbis. And that will lead many, this in combination with the Islamic dilemma, will lead many out of Islam.
Yes, it will. So lots of implications from just this material. So this ties in with Muhammad being the ear and just copying everything he hears. It's exactly what you see. It's exactly what you see here. Muhammad was interacting with lots of Jews, and shocker, a bunch of their stuff ends up in the Quran. So there's the issue of Muhammad simply being a plagiarist. Then the issue of Islam ultimately calling for the violent subjugation of Jews and their complete extermination. So do not like Jews. Shocker, your entire religion is based on it. And so what's going on there? But especially in our time, and I mean right now in 2025, the Groypers, all these guys constantly flipping out about the Talmud, all the Dawa guys, the Talmud, the Talmud, the Talmud, the Talmud, the Talmud. If Chris is right, oh, the Talmud, you mean the source of like 70 to 80% of your book? Huh. That's this horrible, evil book? Well, what does that say about your prophet and your Quran, that's where he got all his information from? So good times, guys, good times. Might need to make some skits eventually. Where we have our good friend, maybe we'll have vocab as Prophet Muhammad, and he needs a story. Someone asks him a question, and then he gets it, and he puts the information in the Quran, but then he turns to the camera and goes, "Thanks, Jews," and something like that. I don't know. We could come up with something. That's just that's a matter of packaging, right? That's a matter of packaging. You want live streams, you want videos, you want skits, you want screenshots, you want shorts, you want all kinds of things. You got to package the material in all kinds of different ways. Oh, hang on, because the guy who said rewatch the video later and see how dumb and hypocritical you are, also said it comes from the Jews because the God of the Quran is the God of Abraham. Smart. That's why it's the same stuff. 6th grade logic. Has this guy posted anything that wasn't like so stupid that you wonder like how he's even able to write given how stupid his comments are? So it was the word incarnation, not in the Bible. And so the word became flesh, which is what incarnation means. And it says God doesn't change when, if you just finish the verse, it tells you it's talking about his character and his faithfulness, not whether he can become incarnate. And then it's just watch your own stuff and you'll see how hypocritical you are, which is dumb. And then it comes from the Jews because the God of the Quran is the God of Abraham. Smart. And Chris, didn't you kind of the material that you're talking? Did this come from Abraham?
No.
That's the point. It didn't come from Abraham. It's stuff that people are coming up with late. I mean, a bunch of it goes back, but the stuff we're talking about, it did not come. We're talking about stuff that definitely did not come from Abraham, did not come from Moses, and so on. We know where some of this stuff comes from. And by the way, it's not just with the Torah and the Talmud and so on. It's the same thing with the Christian scriptures. You've got stuff that's actually in the Christian scriptures and stuff that was from later stuff that was like on the level of bedtime stories for kids, and it ends up in the Quran. It's like, okay, we know where this came from. It didn't come from anything remotely resembling a revelation from God. That's the problem. And matter of fact, you said it. You said it. Maybe this guy wasn't here earlier on when you explained all this. Said, hey, and you said, hey, if the Quran is copying something and it's getting it from an actual divine revelation, okay, we don't have a problem with that. It's getting stuff that's not from divine revelation, and that's a problem. You explain that to this guy, but it's coming from the God of Abraham. Yeah. And you're telling us, you're telling us to go back and watch the live stream, right? You're telling us to go back and watch the live stream. Thank you. You're very, very powerful stuff, man. And he calls this 6th grade logic. Oh, yeah. One of us needs some 6th grade logic. Thank you. Al-Zut Road Muhammad.
Question.
What's up?
In Islam, isn't it a sin to fund the kofar?
What?
Like if like to pay money to a kafir or to like fund someone who is dismantling Islam. Oh, yeah. Isn't that a sin?
Yeah.
Why is he sending you super chats?
Because deep down, he wants to be in trouble on Judgment Day. Thank you for all the contributions. So Paul says, Al-Zut rode Muhammad. The Talmud rode the Quran. AT Ministries, hi, D. Wood. How does being a sociopath affect your marriage? Well, yep, my wife and I had to figure that out. She I still want to, how do I put this? I want her to make a video called, So You Want to Marry a Sociopath or You Want to Marry a Psychopath? And I'm saying that because over the years, she gets messages from women saying, hey, started seeing a guy and he's a psychopath. And so I'm a little concerned about getting into marrying him or something like that. But things worked out for you. So, hey, should I? And she's like, no. And so kind of the first thing was, look, if I had reasons to think that David had been like divinely changed and so on. So in the absence of that, no. But even then she'll point out problems like, if we got into an argument early on, she would cry and stuff like that. And she would point out later that used to work. That used to work with, like, she had a boyfriend, it would work if she cried. He'd be all, whereas she said, I just look at your face and your face is totally blank the entire time. And so there were things like that. And and other little things I've heard her say, don't expect compliments about anything. Never crosses his mind to compliment anyone. It's not in the diagnosis, does not compliment people or something like that. But yes, I've just, that's a weird thing. It's like, I don't care if you compliment me, so why would I care about complimenting anyone else? So yeah, there are little things, but no, we both have to learn, that's a normal feature of marriage. You have to learn about the other person. As if you're committed to each other, you want to learn, oh, I'm learning this annoys her. Okay, let me try not to do that anymore. Oh, I'm learning this really ticks David off, so I'll try not to do that anymore. But no, we make it work. We just had our 23rd wedding anniversary earlier this month, so it works.
Congrats.
It helps her that she basically married the ultimate male, because where else are you going to go after this? So she kind of stuck with me. Hey, we got more. This guy's loading up with super chats. His character doesn't change. Tell yourself, lol. Tell myself what? What are you even talking about, dude? Moses was a Levite, not a Jew. I'm a Levite Muslim. He's a Levite Muslim. That explains why this is so weird. He's a Levite Muslim. And should I stop sending super chats? He's pointing out that if you're a Muslim, you're kind of in trouble. Unless I don't know what a Levite Muslim is, but unless you're going with some other sources. But according to Sunni sources, the person who funds someone else to do something is equally responsible for what the person is doing. So if you're funding our work via super chats, you have an equal responsibility to what we're doing. So thank you for contributing to this important live stream, absolutely wrecking the Quran and exposing Muhammad as a total deceiver and the world's history's greatest plagiarist. Well, thank you. So contribute all the super chats you want. That's on you, not on us. All right, everyone. We'll definitely be having Chris back, and check out his channel. Be sure to subscribe. Check out the videos he's already posted and watch for his new stuff. And we'll catch you all next time.
Thank you.